Hello, everybody. Welcome to Night Court. I'm not alone. Apparently, Streamlabs has decided to show up, so the commands are working again. They were not working earlier during the day stream, despite my best efforts. I don't know what I did. I don't think I did anything, but we're just gonna let it happen. Streamlabs decided to behave. I am not by myself, however. I am joined by a very special guest in a remote location, and by that I mean right outside of her apartment. And so, let's say hi to Brandi. Uh-oh. Oh no. We said hello and then we said goodbye.
I have to turn my calls off because I get calls nonstop and then it cuts me out. Hello, friends and family. Hello. I wanted to share with y'all some peace and serenity because I feel like we all needed it after today. So serenity. My little backyard.
I brought you on like before we went live, and I heard the sound, and I was just like, "Can we just do that all night? That would be great."
I know, right? It's when I have days like today, or tough days. My favorite thing. I love to come out here for sunsets anyway, but my favorite thing is to try to come out here and listen to the water. I come in the morning too and bring Lucy out to run around, and it kind of helps to ground me a little bit and get me in my right headspace to deal with all the mess. So
I know. Amy said, "Can we portal over to the waves? That would be great."
Yes, isn't it beautiful?
Sure is.
I love it. But I wanted to jump on and say hello to everybody and share with y'all some serenity because we need it. But me too. It's been beautiful today too. I was hoping to get a beach day in tomorrow, but now it looks like we're on verdict watch instead. So it is what it is. So, oh well.
One last parting gift from Melly.
The trial that never ends.
Yes. Sherry. I don't remember her name. Who had lamb chop? Sherry and lamb chop. She would love it. This is the trial that never ends.
It goes on and on, my friend, and on and on and on and on and on, my friends.
And on.
Yeah. So it's rough, but what can you do? This is what we signed up for. So
Melly can take that gift, and well, I won't say.
Oh, he's awful. Oh, everybody's awful. It's been, except for our mods have been fantastic. Our chat has been fine. It's just the outsiders coming in that have been stressful.
Yep.
But our people are great. So, all right, y'all, I'll let you get to it. I just wanted to say hello.
Well, hello and goodbye, and I'll be down in like 3 days, and not really, but that would be fun.
All right, bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bum 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 bum. Oh man, that was awesome. I would, I'm kind of more of a mountain person, but I'll take at this point after this week I've had, I'll go anywhere, literally anywhere. So yeah. Well, tonight is Revenge of the Cross, right? Revenge of the Fifth. And we've got Juan who's taking it to Jodi. However, before we get there, let's go ahead and do the top 3. A throne. Taxes. Well done. Got a company there. Yarn, apparently. But you're all back. Little old bag. Ooh. Oh boy, congrats to you 3. You can take your chairs and in your head spaces and just put them in some storage unit, wherever you deem fit. On top of that, I got so distracted by the beach. Night court's now in session. Night court's now in session. What a week, huh, everybody? What a week. So, what'd y'all do this week? Do you have any plans for the weekend? Tell me. Tell me if you got any plans for the weekend. I want to hear from you. Oh boy. God, I hope not. I just want that part to be over so badly. So badly. Hey Nina. Yes. You should rest. But I saw them snacks. You posted. I'm coming over to your place. For sure. Living a dream. Oh boy. Yeah, it does indeed all blend together. That's for sure. It's just starting to get that way. I don't know why, other than the fact that, I'm up day and night. So that'll do it. Ooh, that sounds fun. I think I know what you're writing. I'm sorry, Mama. I never meant to hurt you. Tonight, I'm cleaning out my closet. Oh, but there's a bunch of AC guys coming in. Well, be careful. I loved, ever since college, Cheez-Its are my go-to snack. Except they have to be the classic Cheez-Its. For sure. Jada Wonder says she's joining U2 fans for a stream-a-thon. Really? Well, that sounds interesting. Now my brain's blanking on U2. You ever do that? It's like every single thing, like you remember everything, and then it comes up, and it's just like, I don't remember anything. Oh yeah, it's a beautiful day. Absolutely. With or without you. Vertigo. Good grief. My kids know U2, and that's because they were in the second Sing movie. And so that's how they know him for sure. I've not banned wine tonight. Yay! Actually, speaking of that, I 100%. I told Llama, one of our mods, I said, after today, I am bringing a lunchbox full of Modelo. So that's not there. There is no lunchbox here, and that makes me sad. So as soon as we get started, I'm going to have to run downstairs real fast. 24 hours every 8 hours. Holy cow. I literally have no life. It's okay. I mean, I wouldn't really leave the house if I didn't have kids with swim lessons and things like that. So, Kathy, I am gonna go get some, and then you will see. It's a beer. It's a in this case, It's Modelo Negra, and it's a dark, it's like a dark amber lager beer. I enjoy it. It's a good one. I do like wine. Is it wine with an I or with an HI? Because that makes a big difference. Big difference. Let's see. Well, you all look. Bono was in what? You did bring us back to Buffett. You brought us. That's impressive. Well done, you. That is not just a full circle. It's like a full globe that you just did. I had no idea that was the case. That's wild. Absolutely wild. All right, there was a question for what's on the docket. What's on the docket tonight? Well, Indy Cindy, we have more of our favorite thing, which is the cross of Jodi Arias. And boy, oh boy, do I need it tonight. Tonight. So you all know, and I can't guarantee anything, obviously. So just to let you know, I'm going to move myself. Actually, 1 second here. All right. This fella in the front here. I'm not going to. I mean, you can look up his name, but if he indeed does still work for America, then I sent him an email yesterday. It would be awesome to talk to him. I told him that he was like our favorite guy in the courtroom just because of how awesome he is. I did find out, I think somebody mentioned this in chat the other night. He types 300 words a minute. 300 words a minute. And I guess that's how he got by with Juan and Jodi going back and forth. But good grief. That's really fast. And I do realize, he's got this, what is it, a stenograph? It's not, yeah. Anyways, I really, really, really hope that he says yes, because I would love to speak with him. I am also in the midst of shorthand. That's it. Thank you. Shorthand. See, keep me honest. I also am looking and seeking for retired judge. I'm seeking her email too. So once I find it, I'll send her a message too. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we rock and rolled. So yes. The record is 217 words per minute. Is that so wait, are we saying that he doesn't type 300 words a minute? I guess I found that in a news article or something. So honestly, he'd need to type 500 to keep up with Jodi and Juan for sure. For sure. You do. It's true. You are on time. Congratulations. You're here. Here indeed. Let's see. Oh, wait, hold on. My cousin's a court reporter. When her judge doesn't work, she gets to be off too. She does depositions on the side. I'd probably do depositions on the side too. That sounds really interesting. I've looked into it. We have a juror, court reporter, right on the nose there, with and that's what she does, or she's learning to do. And so, I think it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. RA, you're here. Hello. I saw your video today, sir. You have had a heck of a week. But I'm glad that everybody is home. And I'll leave it at that. If you guys want to catch up on RA and his camping adventures of sorts, go head over to RA's channel and check out the video that he dropped. I think just a little bit ago. And then I think RA said that he was going to be talking about some of those stories a little more during his stream on Monday, I think you said. So yep. Oh man, putting the studio back together, it's always an opportunity to make it cleaner or better, or cable management, which I sorely need to do around here. You can't see half of the stuff that's right under my desk and around me. It's given me anxiety on a regular basis. So Yes. Andy, Cindy, thank you very much for the super chats. Shorthand. I'm uber, like, I'm always like fascinated by shorthand. It's cool, and I just think how much quicker I could have taken notes in classes if I knew how to do it. It would have been smarter. It would have been smarter. Hello, Kendra. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad you got the reminder. Well, everybody, there's two reasons why I want to start Jodi right now, rather than wait a little bit longer. And one, we definitely want to watch as much Cross tonight as we can. It's a Friday. Let's have some fun. Two, I want to go grab the drinks that I forgot downstairs. So it's purely selfish. Anyways, so we're gonna get started on Jodi here, and this is gonna be an interesting time. While I'm away for the 30 seconds that it takes me to sprint downstairs, behave. You will. There's not a question. You will.
With regard to these memory issues that you claim to have, when did you start having them?
It depends on the type of memory issue.
If it benefits you, you have a memory issue?
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor.
Or if it hurts you, you have a memory issue?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Well,
When it hurts, sometimes I...
ma'am, there's no question right now. You say that you have memory problems, but it depends on the circumstance, right?
That's right.
And give me the factors. I don't want to know about a specific circumstance. What factors influence your having a memory problem?
Usually when men like you are screaming at me or grilling me, or someone like Travis doing the same.
So that affects your memory problems, right?
It does. It makes my brain scramble.
So you're saying that it's basically what you're saying is Mr. Martinez's fault, that you can't remember things that are going on.
It's not your fault.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that, isn't it?
No, I'm not saying that.
Is there something about a certain decibel of the voice that creates problems?
Decibel, tone, content, sort of a combination of those factors.
When?
Objection, Your
What
Honor.
time?
This is just a stunt. Mere approach.
You may.
Dad back.
What time, ma'am, did you get off of work? For me?
Lunchbox.
In the afternoon?
Well, hold on. Let me
One
finish
day
the
I'll-
question. What
Like to have
time did you get off the
Langford's my
meetings on January 21 of 2000?
Objection, ask and answer. She's already said repeatedly she doesn't know the time.
Oh.
A time in the afternoon.
Can you be more specific
No.
about the time?
No, she can't.
Why not?
Because I don't think I was looking at my watch or my phone or any other clock.
Where did you go after you left Mimi's?
I went to Travis's house.
You went directly to Mr. Alexander's house, right?
That's right.
And what time did you get over to his house?
I'm sorry?
Couldn't hear me?
I couldn't hear you.
What time did you get over to his house?
Objection, ask and answer. She's already said she didn't know the time.
About 20 minutes after I left Mimi's.
And when you got there, ma'am, did you walk in?
Yes.
Front door?
Usually
Yes.
Was it open?
Men like
Yes.
you were
Was
traveling.
it unlocked?
Yes.
And you said you walked in and you went straight up the stairwell, right?
I mean,
Yes.
And you didn't say a word going up the stairwell, did you?
I'm sorry?
You didn't say a word going up the stairway, did you?
I'll catch it with the replay crew. Hi, replay crew.
I don't remember.
Didn't call out his name, right?
I might have, yes.
And ma'am, in January 21 of 2008, you and he were broken up, weren't you?
Yes.
So it wasn't like you were boyfriend and girlfriend that you went over every day, right?
I was,
By the way,
we were
around
not boyfriend, girlfriend, but I
10
went
o'clock?
over. almost every day.
Pardon?
I'm gonna.
We were not
preview,
boyfriend, girlfriend, but I did go over almost every day.
I'm gonna preview
You're
the
mumbling, I didn't hear you.
next case.
We
for
were not
sidebar
boyfriend, girlfriend, but I did go to his house almost every day.
at 10.
And on this particular day, what were you there to do?
He needed help putting boxes up in his attic.
And had you talked to him about this previously?
Yes,
Was it via text message or was it via some other method?
I don't remember. It was discussed.
Was it via telephone?
Probably.
Well, ma'am, how could you discuss it by telephone if you were working at Mimi's?
It was discussed
We
previous
talked about
to
the
my
order of this one.
So
You have
what time
time.
did you discuss it then?
It had to do with, well, it wasn't that day. It was weeks ahead of time. It was about the Christmas things that were in his attic.
So now it wasn't that day that you discussed it, right?
Once I got there, we were discussing it.
I want to know if that day that you claim this happened, if there was a telephone call in the morning.
I don't remember that part.
And if back then, what was your number? We've already heard it, but,
831-402-1901.
and that would have been the number that you called him on, right? That you used to call him. That would have been the
You gave
telephone
it
that
away.
you would have used to call him, right?
Usually, yes.
That was your telephone, right?
Yes, that was my cell phone.
And you say, well, normally I would use that to call him. Pray tell, what other circumstances would there be that you wouldn't use your cell phone to call him?
Landlines,
Pardon?
landlines.
You had a landline also at your home, right?
There were landlines in the homes where I lived.
Pardon?
There were landlines in the homes where I lived.
I'm not asking about the homes where you lived. I'm asking about the homes on your home on January 21 of 2008.
There was not a landline in that home.
There was not one, was there?
No, there was not.
So you would have had to use your cell phone to call him, right?
I probably would have used my cell phone if I called him that day, yes.
And now you're saying you're not sure if you called him that morning then, right?
I don't think I did because he didn't get up early.
Go fly a kite.
Ma'am, so you're saying you didn't call him that morning, right?
I don't recall
It's fine, sure.
if I did or not.
Well, then,
Fine.
I thought you said that there was some agreement or arrangement for you to go over there that day.
There was.
All right, what was the arrangement?
The arrangement was after Christmas, when he had packed up all of his things, to put him in the attic.
No, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about the arrangement, about the time when you were going to go over. I don't really care about what the activity was. What was the arrangement about when you were going to come
That's
over,
funny.
how that was going to work?
Just whenever it made sense.
So whenever it made sense, you were going to go over that day.
Yes, that day was a good day for us.
And
And do always.
you don't know if you talked to him in the morning about telling him that it was that day that you were going to be over.
I don't remember.
And if you didn't talk to him, your coming over would have been a surprise then after working at Mimi's, right?
No, he was expecting me the first time.
How would he be able to expect you the first time if you didn't call him in the morning to let him know you were going to be over that day?
Because it was already discussed.
When was it discussed? Tell me.
It was discussed multiple times in the weeks following Christmas.
I understand that it was discussed multiple times in the weeks following Christmas, but in those multiple times following Christmas, did you pick a date? January 21, let's just pick December 26th. You said to him, on January 21 of 2008, I'm going to come over and help you with the Christmas decorations. Is that how it worked?
No,
No, it didn't, did it? You needed, if you had an arrangement, there would have been an agreement, wouldn't there have been?
we weren't that formal.
Well, but you just told me that you talked about it though, right?
It was discussed multiple times, yes.
Right. And so though all those multiple times that you discussed it, you agreed that it was going to be January 21, 2008 after you got off work from Mimi's. Is that the agreement or is that the discussion?
I don't think it was that specific at all.
So what was the discussion then?
Just whenever we got together to do it,
So then he wasn't expecting you like you said he was when you came over that day.
He was hoping I would come over to help him with those things.
Ma'am, you keep saying he was hoping. How do you know he was hoping if he didn't even know you were coming over?
Based on our discussions.
So in your discussions, you told him, I want you to hope that I come over on the 21st?
I didn't tell him that.
Of course you didn't. The point is, you really didn't,
For the super
you
chat.
can't tell us anything about the circumstances of that day, can you?
That's not true.
Well, you can't tell us about the time, right?
Not a precise
I think that's
hour
what-
and minute.
I think
You
No.
can't tell us what you worked at Mimi's, right?
Doggone grin.
What hours, right?
Not the precise hours.
You can't tell us what time you got over to his house, right?
Not the precise minute.
You can't tell us if there was even a telephone call that morning, right?
I don't remember if there were calls that morning.
Can't tell us anything. But you can tell us that you walked in and then there was this issue and you went in to help him with the Christmas decorations, right?
Yes.
And after you helped him with the Christmas decorations, you left, right?
Yes.
Drove away, right?
Yes.
Came back, right?
Yes.
And according to you, that's when you saw Mr. Alexander engaged in this masturbatory activity, right?
Yes.
And according to you, there were multiple photographs, but you saw one of them in particular, correct?
Yes.
And you then
You are
left,
welcome.
right?
Yes.
I would scream last.
And you left in your car, right?
Yes.
Probably got it this way.
And you went home and started driving around, right?
Went home, threw up, cried, then drove around.
Sure, you did all these kinds of things that afternoon, right?
Yes.
In your car, right?
Oh!
I didn't throw up in my car.
What's that?
I didn't throw up in my car.
Right. No, you drove off in your car, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Well, isn't that problematic since you were driving Mr. Alexander's car?
I wasn't driving his car yet. We were supposed to swap cars.
Party line.
Well, he didn't have a car that day, right?
We were switching cars
Ma'am,
back.
did he have a, my question
He
is,
did have a car.
isn't it true he did not have a car that day?
No, he had a car.
Well, ma'am, let's take a look at some of the text messages, okay?
Okay.
I'm gonna give you two sets, one with his responses and one without, all right?
Okay.
Take a look at exhibit 461.
Oh my gosh, I would be reveling in this cross. I mean, it's still a
Those
trial.
are text messages between your telephone number and that of Mr.
Into
Alexander,
the
correct?
business.
Yes.
And the incoming means that that's your message coming in to him, correct? Ma'am,
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry. I was
do you
reading.
remember previously testifying that when incoming was on these text messages, that meant that that was you calling or that was you leaving the message?
That was me sending the message.
Right. And the outgoing is him sending it out, right?
Yes.
You also talked a little bit about the timing of it, right? The times that are designated,
Yes.
you indicated that, well, it was 7 hours off, right?
Yes.
That copy that I've given you has taken the time to write down the actual times minus 7 hours, right?
Yes.
Go ahead and review it to make sure that the times that are on there are correct.
Yes, those are correct. I believe.
Well, we don't want you to believe. Take your time, subtract 7 from there and see if that's correct. Because it's important here, we don't want you to believe.
I'm pretty sure they're correct.
When you say pretty sure, it means you're not sure to me.
No, I said I'm pretty sure.
And it does not include his responses on there or his outgoing messages, does it?
Yeah, it looks like it's blocked out.
Right. Take a look at exhibit 462. Same thing, right? Except that this one includes his responses on there, right?
Yes.
Okay. The times are also written in there, correct?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, those are the accurate times that are written in there. Those are the accurate times that that message was either outgoing or incoming,
Y'all
right?
don't understand how much fun it was to type
That
that
is
in
right.
to make her a mod.
Okay.
Hang on, let me check. Yeah, they look like they match.
Okay. I may have those back. Look for the admission of exhibit number 461.
I'll write a song called Tootsie Pops and Pop Rock.
Objection to 461, Your Honor.
61 is admitted.
Take a look at exhibit 461. And let's talk about the times first. Do you see that, although it says 1:22:08 at 003850, someone has written 1:21:538 p.m. because of the 7-hour time difference that you've talked about previously on direct examination, right?
Yes,
And when we talked about, it's got your name on there, right?
that's right,
It's got your telephone number on there, right?
right.
And then it has the time of January 21st at 5:38 p.m., right?
Yes,
If I remove
And
emojis,
then
we'll
it says, you say,
Need
I
more
can't
members."
remember, am I coming in for you on Wednesday at 10:30? Isn't that what it says?
yes,
I don't want you to lose what we have. YouTube's weird.
Then, you see the next one at 6:41 p.m., right? You claim that you have already left Mimi's Cafe in the early afternoon, right?
yes.
And so,
No, I didn't say early, I said sometime in the afternoon.
but you can't tell us the time, right?
That's right,
But at 6:41 p.m., you are talking about trading cars before FHE, right?
yes,
FHE stands for Family Home Evening, right?
that's right.
And Family Home Evening starts at 7 o'clock in the evening, doesn't it?
I don't remember.
Well, you were a practicing Mormon, weren't you?
Yes, sort of.
And you attended Family Home Evenings. You were telling us about that, right?
Yes, I did.
And you attended them more than once, right?
Yes, I did.
And of all of those times that you attended, didn't they start at 7 o'clock?
I don't remember. They were in the evening, but I don't remember the time.
Would they have started
Yes.
at 10 o'clock at night?
No, they were not too late.
How long, isn't it true that they lasted about an hour, Family Home Evenings?
Yes, roughly an hour.
And then
Email didn't
the
bounce
people
back.
that were there, the singles that were there, would get together and get involved in some sort of social activity, right?
Yes.
Bowling, that sort of thing, right?
My ward never went bowling.
Movie, something like that.
My ward never went to movies.
Going out to dinner.
It was usually at the church.
But it could also be at people's houses, right?
Yes,
And then at 7:19 p.m., you're sending him a text. Never mind, one of the stores I need to go to closes at 8 p.m. I'll just go tomorrow, right?
that's right.
That's evening now, right?
Yes,
You said that this incident involving the masturbatory conduct occurred in the afternoon, right?
it did.
So it would have happened before 7:19 p.m., right?
Yes,
And you were already gone. You were wherever, right?
yes,
And you told us though that no, he kept calling you, and then you said you called him back, right?
yes, I did.
And then you went out and got him something from, I think it was Starbucks or something, and you brought him something over. Do you remember saying that?
Not that day.
Well, then you went over to his house though, right?
I did.
And you went over and then you had sex with him, right?
Yes.
What time did you go over to his house?
It was in the evening.
What time?
Don't know the time.
Well, if he's going to Family Home Evening, he's not going to be around. If it starts, assume it starts at 7. He's not going to be around at 7 o'clock, is he?
Facts, not in evidence.
Restate your question. Restate.
If, just for hypothetically speaking, man, if Family Home Evening starts at 7 o'clock, he's not going to be home at 7 p.m., is he?
Objection, I assume Stan was there.
If he went, then he wouldn't be.
I'm not asking if he went. If it starts at 7 o'clock in the evening, he would not have been home then, right?
Objection, I assume facts, not in evidence that he lied that he was there.
They went
Sleepy
to
bailiff.
FHE.
Sleepy bailiff alert.
overruled.
It wouldn't necessarily mean that, because it doesn't mean that he went. But that night,
Ma'am, I'm saying hypothetically. That means assume
okay,
that he went to family home evening. And if it started at 7, he wouldn't have been at his house, right?
that's right.
And if he has become involved in this masturbatory conduct, why are you worried about trading cars with him?
I think he wanted to trade the car.
Ma'am, this is not him writing that out there, is it?
I wanted to do it before FHE. He wanted to trade the car.
Well, why don't we take a look at his, which is 462. This is the one that includes his responses, right?
Yes.
Take a look at it and see who's concerned about trading cars. It indicates the back and forth involving the car, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I move for the admission of exhibit number 462.
No objection.
462 is admitted.
Ma'am, do you know who Alice Laviolette is?
Yes.
She's somebody that is assisting you in this case, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you told her that the masturbatory conduct involving Mr. Alexander took place while he was on the computer?
Don't trip up on that.
No, I never said that.
Isn't it true that you've heard a statement from her indicating that you told her that the masturbatory conduct took place while he was on the computer?
No, I've never heard her say that.
Ma'am, were you here at a hearing?
Objection, Your Honor.
Right.
Ma'am, isn't it true that you heard Ms. Laviolette indicate that you told her that you saw Mr. Alexander masturbating to images on a computer?
No, I heard you say that in the hearing.
Well, ma'am, do you remember that I played a snippet with her voice on it?
Yes, but I couldn't understand it.
Did you hear that snippet? Yes or no?
I heard it, but I didn't understand it.
I'm not asking you if you understood it. Isn't it true that you were here when that snippet was played?
Yes.
And that snippet involved whether or not she had ever told the prosecution that you told her
She drives him
that you saw Mr.
crazy.
Alexander masturbating to images on a
But
computer.
that's
That's right.
Jodi.
Let me go ahead and continue with the text messages. This is now exhibit 462. And it includes the outgoing, which is Mr. Alexander's text messages, right?
That's right.
And we were talking about exchanging cars before going to FHE, Family Home Evening, right?
Yes.
And ma'am, you did indicate something about whether or not
Family home evening sounds like a
you
club
called them, or did you say you did or did not call him that morning?
that only
I said I
plays
don't remember.
cartoon theme songs.
So it could be true that you did not call him at all
While you
that morning.
play Monopoly.
Objection, comment, question.
Sustained.
So it is true that
It's in light.
you do not know if you called him that morning. So, well, let me do this. It could be you did not call him that morning.
It could be because I don't remember.
I have almost.
And again, is this issue with your lack of memory because of the questions, the way they're being posed?
No.
Does it have to do with the volume of the person asking you the questions?
No, I think the length of time.
Is it yes or no? The volume.
Then that would be no.
So at 7:20, you send him a text message. Never mind, one of the stores I need to go closes at 8. I'll just go tomorrow. So that was 1 minute later. It's the same message that you sent before, correct?
That's correct.
And then Mr. Alexander sends you a text message at 7:24 p.m., right?
Right?
And he says, I got a ride from some peeps in the ward now. You can just go get it. Let me know when you made the exchange. Isn't he telling you that he went to the family home evening there?
Yes.
So he did go to the family home evening, right?
I'm assuming.
Well, there's nothing else that's indicated here other than family home evening, right?
That's right.
And family home evening, from your experience, when you were going, how long does it last?
Usually about an hour. Depends on the event. Sometimes there's special events that go longer.
And then there are other events that may come along afterwards, right?
I don't know. I usually went home after FHE.
Did you?
To your knowledge, ma'am, these family home evenings, did they end after the hour, or were there chances sometimes, even though you may not have attended, that they would go on longer than that?
Objection calls for speculation is what happened on January 21st.
Overruled, that wasn't the question.
I guess that's always a chance.
Well, I'm asking from your knowledge when you were going.
She is something else, guys. Something.
Typically, we all dispersed. It was a Monday night. We didn't hang out too late.
Okay. Then at 7:25, you send him a text message that appears to be in response to that one, right? Because it's 1 minute later, right?
Yes.
And you say, I'm almost asleep, we'll see, right?
Right.
And what you're talking about is exchanging the car, right?
Yes.
The big concern here is exchanging the car, right?
Yes.
Doesn't have anything to do with what you claim you saw, right?
We're talking about the car in this text message.
Right, it doesn't, and the point here is that you're talking about very pedestrian issues, such as exchanging a car. You're not talking about, Travis, I saw you masturbating or anything like that, right?
It wasn't a pedestrian issue with Travis.
Pardon?
The car was not a pedestrian issue with Travis.
Well, so you're equating this issue with the car the same as him masturbating to images as kids. Is that what you're saying?
Not by a long shot. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Then he's talking about, you obviously don't need it that bad. I got a ride so you could go get the car. Now you're going to sleep? That's what he tells you, right?
Yes.
He's made or tried to make arrangements for you to pick up your car, right?
I don't remember which car I was driving.
Well, he didn't have a car because he got a ride with somebody else, right?
That's not why he got a ride.
Well, when he's riding with somebody else, his car's not with him, right?
That's right.
And so he's without a car at family home evening or wherever it is that he went, right?
Yes.
You have a car, right?
All right, showing Mama.
Yes.
His car, right?
Mama.
Objection, she's asking an answer.
Overruled.
I don't remember which car I was driving.
Well, it wouldn't have been his car because you wouldn't have needed to exchange his car for his car, right?
Like the
It would have
flowers.
been mine or his.
Right. So you're driving your car, right?
Objection,
Adorable.
ask an answer.
Overruled.
Flowers.
I've already said that I don't remember which car I'm driving.
There, you indicated previously that after this happened, you went home and he kept trying to call you over and
I
over,
missed the
right?
reporter chuckling.
I had voicemails from him or missed calls.
It means he kept trying to call you over and over again, right?
Right.
Whether you left voicemails or whatever, he kept trying to call you, right?
Yeah, he did.
And you didn't respond to those calls, right?
Not immediately that I remember.
Well-
I was in the visitation center, the visitor
Excuse me?
center, so I had my phone volume off.
You were what?
I was at the visitor center,
What visitor center are you talking about?
the one next to the Mesa temple.
And is that where you went after this incident happened?
That's where I ended up after driving.
Is this where you were almost asleep?
No, this was after the fact.
So now you're back at home.
Yes.
Right? And in between then and, well, in between what you say you saw and when you were home, that's when you have all these calls, right?
From the time I ran out of his house, he called.
From the time you ran out of his house till what time at night are these calls coming in?
Till I called him back.
When? What time?
As soon as I left the visitor center, I called him.
Right? So you're sure that there's a bunch of calls that he made to you, and then they sort of piled up, whether they're voice messages or missed calls, and then you returned his call, right?
That's how I remember it, yes.
Okay? Actually, that's not the way it really went on that day. Isn't it true, ma'am, that there were actually 5 calls that day between you and him, where he called you 5 times and you called him back 5 times? Did you know that?
That there were many more than 5. There may be 5 from his cell phone.
I'm asking cell phone to cell phone. And you're saying that at that time, you only had your cell phone, right?
I only had my cell phone.
Right,
At the visitor center.
right. And he left you 5 calls, or he left you calls, right?
Yes.
And actually, there were only 5 calls from him all day long to you on the 21st. Isn't that true?
That's not true.
Isn't it true there was only 5 return calls from you on that day?
That might be true.
And in fact, when you say that he was calling you all the time, actually didn't go this way that you called him at 3:53 in the evening or the afternoon, didn't you?
That sounds accurate.
And then you called him again at 4:09 in the evening, didn't you?
That sounds accurate.
And he returned your call at 4:29, right?
I believe he did.
And then you called him back at 4:53, right?
That sounds accurate.
My gosh.
Well, I thought you said that
I
there was this
can't- I
issue
cannot.
that you were not returning his call. It looks like you're returning his call and he's calling you back.
Well, that's probably a cell phone.
Well, what difference does it make if it's a cell phone or not? Isn't that a telephone call?
Yeah, but he had the landline that he called me on frequently.
Right, but I'm talking about on that day, the calls that were made. What was his landline number, man?
I don't have it memorized because it was just in my phone as Travis Alexander.
You are a meathead.
So you called him at 4:53, isn't it true, PM, and he returned your call then at 4:54 PM. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that specific, but
Hello.
Isn't it true he then called you back at 5:11 PM? Remember that?
not specifically.
How about him calling you back at 5:20 PM?
I don't remember specifically.
And how about him calling you back
I
at
was
5:48
hoping
PM?
somebody would get it.
I just know he called me a lot that day.
I loved that
And then you
show.
returned his call at 5:53 PM. Do you remember any of that?
The time sounds accurate.
Well, then if we go then to 462, which is the text
Bye.
messages,
Go.
have these calls and then it picks up with text messages. You see that?
Yes,
The communication does, right?
yes.
So there was never a time when, as you said previously, where you and he were not communicating. You're either communicating by telephone or by text message, aren't you?
No, there's a gap.
Well, you said that it was right that you called him at 5:53 PM, right? You just said that that sounds right.
It sounds about right. I don't remember the times.
Right? And then the first message after this call that you said sounds right at 5:53 PM is at 6:41, right?
Yes.
Less than an hour later, right?
The text, yes.
And then there's one at 7:19. Right?
Yes.
And if we say, hypothetically speaking, that family home evening starts at 7, he's already at family home evening by the time that he sends you this text at 7:24, right?
That's right.
You then say, at 7:29 PM, I fell asleep and a phone call woke me up, right?
What date is that?
The 21st, man.
That's right. Okay.
I fell asleep and a phone
Oh my
call woke
gosh.
me up.
Oh,
I thought you said you were at the LDS Center off of Dobson and Southern.
Not by this time.
I thought you were asleep.
I went home and crashed. I'd been crying and I had a migraine.
So when did you go to sleep? Give us a time.
I don't have a time that I fell asleep. I went to sleep after I left the visitor center.
he remembers
Well, when did you have time to
everything
sleep? If
during
you're
direct.
calling him back and he's calling you,
nothing now.
and then right after that, you begin texting back and forth. When is it that you find the time to sleep?
Well, I didn't sleep for a long period of time. I just dozed off.
Well, you do say at 7:25, yeah, that you're almost asleep. We'll see about this car transfer thing, right?
Right.
And then you put the Z's on there that indicates you're going to sleep, right?
I was very tired, yes.
And so you went to sleep. You say you went to sleep, right?
I was laying there very tired, and I think I fell asleep.
Well, then you say at 7:29, 4 minutes later, I fell asleep and a phone call woke me up. That's when I sent you a text. That's what you say, right?
100% transparent.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Well,
chat, Indy.
when is it that you're sleeping? What's waking you up between those 4 minutes? What's
I
going
don't think
on?
I'm sleeping right then. I don't know. I fell asleep.
I don't-
He wanted me to get the car.
But he's at family home evening already, and he doesn't care because he's already at family home evening, isn't he?
He was a little upset because he got a ride because he thought I was going to go get it.
But it didn't happen, did it?
No.
And the big point going on here is not talking about anything that may have happened. You're not saying you're upset about anything. You're just talking about this car being exchanged, right?
We're talking specifically about the car exchange in the text message.
And you don't say, I'm upset, we need to talk, or anything like that, do you?
My favorite is when he
No.
sighs. It's the
You say you have a really bad headache
because he uses
that you
his
can
shoulder.
barely move, right?
Yes.
And that's at 7:36, right?
Yes.
And then there's a gap of approximately 2 hours or an hour and 45 minutes, which could be with an activity with family home evening, right?
Yes.
And he says, all right, I'll get it tomorrow then, right?
He says for me to get it tomorrow.
All right, get it tomorrow then, right?
Yes.
In other words, make the whatever exchange of cars that's going to happen, let's just do it tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Or have you do it tomorrow, right?
Right, whichever.
Which indicates you aren't going to get together that night, are you?
At the moment, yes.
Not at the moment. It says, do it tomorrow. Isn't that what it says?
When that text was sent, yes.
Okay, but then you want to talk to him, right?
Yes.
And that's at 9:16 p.m. You say, can you talk right now? And he says, no, not right now, right?
Yes.
Presumably, if
Time.
he went to family home evening, I'm not saying that he did, that's probably what he's doing, if he did go, right?
I love how you all call
If he did
yourselves
go.
out.
If he
Maybe.
did go,
If
right?
family home evening is still going on at that hour.
And then, but previously, ma'am, you told us that he was the one that wanted to talk to you, right? Didn't you tell us that? That he kept calling until you relented, and then you went over, right?
He did want to talk to me, yes.
Right. But it looks here that, like you
Tomorrow,
want to talk to him, doesn't
before.
it?
I do now, yes.
And then you're still not together at 11:33, and you sent him a message, how long, right?
That's right.
How long is he going to be out, is what you're asking him, aren't you?
No, how long till he is ready to talk?
Well, that's part of, given what we've seen about this relationship, isn't that part of your jealousy because you want to know what's going on with him that night?
Objection, argument.
Is that the ooh 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 ooh? Okay, all right. Listen, the face she gets is amazing. All right, we're gonna go back and watch this. Watch her face. The contempt that she has on her face for one is palpable.
A message, how long, right?
Palpable.
That's right.
How long is he going to be out, is what you're asking him, aren't you?
No, how long till he is ready to talk?
Well, that's part of, given what we've seen about this relationship, isn't that part of your jealousy because you want to know what's going on with him that night?
Objection.
There it is.
Sustained.
There's a smirk
Ma'am, how long,
and pursed lip.
that's you saying, how long before we can talk, right? Isn't that what it means?
Yes.
And then he says to you, and the times aren't there, but he does, and by that I mean they weren't in. It says,
Come on, work this
did you
out.
use my phone this morning without asking, right?
Yes.
So if you got together with him, it was after 11:33, after he got done doing whatever he was doing,
A
right?
slow blink.
What was that question?
If you got together that evening, It was after he got done with whatever he was doing.
That's right.
And so it doesn't seem like he's in a hurry to talk to you, does it?
I don't know.
It doesn't seem like he's all this, like this upset that you portrayed him, that he really wanted to talk to you about this issue that you say that you saw him engaged in, right?
Objection causes speculation.
Sustained.
There are gaps here where
Really do.
he's doing whatever he's doing, and you're doing the asking how long, right?
That's right.
He then asks you whether or not you used his phone in the morning without asking, right?
Yes.
And you tell him that you did, right?
Yes.
And you ask why, and he says nothing, right?
Yes.
There's an issue about the deposit, and in fact, you're asking him if he made the deposit, right?
Yes.
And he told you that he did, right?
Especially when he's
Yes.
listening to
Is
his
he giving
own
you money
questions.
there?
What's the date?
Pardon?
What was the date on that one?
The 22nd.
I don't know what we were referring to there.
Well, you do say your text message does say, did you make the deposit?
Yes.
And he said yes. And then you said what?
Thank you. I'll make it up to you soon.
It looks like he lent you money there, doesn't it?
Yes.
Any idea how much money he lent you?
Come on now.
He lent me money in small increments. I don't remember.
A lot.
And he would do it if you needed it, right?
If he could, he would. Yes.
And if you needed it, right?
Yes.
Now, the next day, that same day at 3:36 in the afternoon, you say to him, I'm going to need a ride. I'm off at 4 p.m. Text me. Still the issue with the car, right?
Yes.
Where's your car?
Probably parked at his house.
How'd you get to work?
He sometimes he drove me and sometimes I carpooled with a coworker.
So what happened on this particular day?
I don't remember.
What time did you get to work?
I don't remember. I usually work in the morning, but sometimes I work evenings also.
So in this day, you're going to get off at 4 o'clock, right?
Well, in theory, if business permits.
But that's what it says there, right?
Yes.
And this is at 3:36. You want him to pick you up, right?
Yes.
How long was your shift usually? 4, 6, 8 hours?
Depending on the flow of business, typically it was 4 to 6 hours.
All right. And then
all
at
they have to do is
4:04, you
just kinda
send
hit
him
this.
another text message and you say, scratch that. They're keeping me here till 5 p.m. Can you pick me up then? The lunch offer from my voicemail still stands. What are you talking about?
For him to pick me up.
Pardon?
For him to pick me up after work.
No, I'm asking about the lunch offer. I'm not asking about him picking you up.
I felt really bad for him and everything that happened. So I was just trying to make him feel better because if I were in his shoes, I'd want to jump off a bridge at this point.
So what about the lunch offer? What are you talking about?
That's what it was. I offered to get him lunch.
Well, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon though. Lunch usually is noon, right?
That's
Well,
impressive.
not for Travis.
And then he says, sure, I'm almost off. Yay. Are you eating? If so, just sit in the counter, right?
Right.
Throughout this whole text message in between you and him, there's no discussion about anything that may have happened on the 21st, is there?
Not in text messages. Definitely not.
The answer is no, right?
No.
And in terms of the phone calls that you claim that were being made, there wasn't this barrage of phone calls from him that you didn't respond to. Actually, it was more give and take, wasn't it?
He left a barrage of phone calls at one period of time, yes.
Pardon?
He did. He left a barrage of phone calls.
Well, then let's just take a look at
You sit on a throne of lies.
We'll see you back here at 3:25. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
Don't
Now, we've looked at some journal entries from your journals, and there's only been 2 or 3 that we've looked at. Nowhere in your journal do you ever mention anything about Mr. Alexander in this incident that you claimed involving masturbatory conduct, correct?
That's correct.
Take a look at Exhibit 463. This is a
While he's watching those movies that we learned lawyering
calls
from.
between you and Mr. Alexander, or from Mr. Alexander's telephone.
Okay,
I understand that those are not your own records, right?
that's right.
And so I don't expect you to vouch for the authentication aspect of it, but we did previously discuss the calls that were involved between you and Mr. Alexander. And you indicated where that seems right. The calls that we previously discussed, they're on that sheet, correct?
Not all of the calls, but yes,
The call,
some are.
all the calls that are there, ma'am, are the ones between you and him, correct?
The ones highlighted are between him and I, yes.
Right. There are other calls, but not between you and him, right?
Yes,
And the calls between you and him are the ones that you and I talked about, and then you indicated that they seemed right, correct?
they seem correct, that's right.
And that sheet bears that out, correct?
Yeah, the times are out of order, but I think,
Times are out of order, and they're out of order because they're different switches that carry the calls, right?
I don't know.
But they are out of order, right?
The times are out of order, yes.
Right, but in terms of the calls themselves, we talked about you calling him at 3:53 PM. You can find that on there, correct?
Yes,
There's a blue marking for those, right?
yes,
So there's that call, right?
yes.
And there is no other call on the 21st previous to 3:53 PM that you can see, right?
You mean from me to him?
Right. Or from him to you, or from you to him.
From me to him, I don't see any others before 3:53.
Right. And the last call that was made by Mr. Alexander on that telephone, and we talked about these calls, was at 7:11 PM, right? There are no calls from his phone after that.
I don't see the one at 7-Eleven.
The last call period that he made, not just to you, but to anybody. Maybe
Oh,
that was
on the
confusing.
21st?
Right, to anybody.
Okay,
That is the last call that he made, right? There may have been others that called him, but that's the last call that he made.
oh, I didn't look at who was calling who. It looks like this is the last call from his cell phone on the 22nd, or 21st, my apologies.
Ma'am, this issue involving your allegation that, I may have it back. Your allegation that Mr. Alexander was engaging in masturbation while viewing images of boys and girls. That was subject of a hearing back in August 8th of 2011, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Well, then let me show you a
Partly.
document to make sure that we're clear, and if I could have it certified.
Before the question, yes, I'm going to object to the motion regarding the hearing on August 8, 2011.
A prejudice.
Now, take a look at Exhibit 464 and see if that refreshes your recollection as to the date of the hearing, which is on the upper right-hand corner, and then take a look at page 3 to see if that refreshes your recollection that there was a hearing involved.
Yes, there's some language I don't understand, but I remember this.
Right, that, I'm just asking about the date. It was August 8th, correct?
Yes,
And during that, the purpose of that hearing involved at least an aspect of the allegation that Mr. Alexander had engaged in pedophilic conduct, right?
Objection is characterized as the hearing.
Overruled. You may answer.
Right?
an aspect, yes.
And 4 days, on August 4th, before that, you tried to get somebody to lie at that hearing, didn't you?
No,
All right, let's Let me show you some documents. I want you to take a look at Exhibit 465.
Judge, we're going to object at this point.
Yes, you may approach.
Take a look at Exhibit 465. Let me see if you recognize it.
I didn't recognize it.
Look, it's a magazine, isn't it?
Yes,
It's your magazine, correct?
yes,
Sent to you, correct?
yes.
Move for the admission of exhibit number 465.
Move your approach.
Okay.
With regard to this magazine, you received it, right?
Yes.
In the mail, and you had it in your possession at one point, right?
Yes.
And you had it in your possession on August 4th, correct?
I think I did.
Pardon?
I think I did, yes.
I move for the admission of exhibit number 465.
No objection.
465 is admitted.
And previously you talked to us yesterday, direct examination about being in jail and doing an interview with Inside Edition, correct?
Yes,
And in fact, you were in jail when you received this magazine, correct?
yes,
It's addressed to you, correct?
yes.
And with regard to this magazine,
Why?
on August 4th, isn't it true that an individual by the name of Ann Campbell came to visit you?
Yes.
Yes,
And she came by and she started to visit. The visitation began at 1:36, but for you roughly around 1:30 in the afternoon, right?
yeah, it was in the afternoon.
And that conversation between you and Ann Campbell lasted approximately an hour, correct?
It lasted a long time, from what I remember.
And as part of the process, while you were there, one of the things that, or as part of the visitation, one of the things that you wanted to do was to give 2 magazines to Ms. Campbell, correct?
Yes,
And the way it works is that before you give that magazine, it has to go through a guard so that they can give it out to the person, right?
it has to go through a sergeant.
And in this case, that's what happened with this magazine, correct?
Yeah, it goes through, I'm sorry, it goes through an officer, then a sergeant, then another officer.
But you, and bottom line though, is you wanted to give this magazine to Ann Campbell, right?
That and
That one and another one.
Right, the Star magazine, correct?
I'm the
Yes,
I'm
I'm
like
sorry.
Well, let's look at
the
the
head
other
of this
magazine.
circus. I just need a top hat.
Let's take a look at exhibit number 466. Is this the magazine that you wanted to give to Ann Campbell, 466?
That looks like it.
Well, it's got your name as the addressee, right?
Yes,
And it is the Star
are a
magazine,
meathead.
correct?
yes, that's the one.
And this is the one that went along with the photography magazine, correct?
Yes,
I move for the admission we did at 466.
No objection.
466 is admitted.
Exhibit 465 is called,
You know, like
Digital Photo Pro
she can mimic what people
magazine,
want.
correct?
yes,
And
Like she
you
would be
previously indicated
great
to
at
us that
the
you're
job.
very interested in photography and that sort of thing, right?
yes, I was.
And that
I
for many years prior to your arrest that you were involved in that sort of thing, right?
Yes,
You took photographs at weddings and all that, and other kinds of
I
photographs,
dig
right?
that.
yes,
And here is the
Like people walk in.
tag that's on there. It does have your name on there, right?
yes,
In the wine.
Now, inside this magazine, on page 6,
You know that artist.
we just look at it. Leave the printed numbers to the side and the red numbers to the side. There is some writing in pencil. Can you see it?
yes.
And can you tell us, if you can, what that says?
Mark Stanek, 520-256-1178, ABC in parentheses.
And you know who Mark Stanek is, right?
Yes,
Mark Stanek is a producer or at that time was a producer for ABC News, right?
Yes. Well, I don't know if he was the producer at that time.
But he had visited you on occasion, right?
Yes, about 4 years ago.
Right about the same time that this was going on. Wow. Let me just show you exhibit number.
Perfect marketing. I mean, let's be honest. That's a good idea.
467, does that refresh your recollection as to when this individual from ABC was visiting you?
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. That's real. It was, yeah. Today was sad. We lost a legend, an absolute legend.
Yes.
And what dates did he visit you?
July 8th, 2009 and September 17th, 2009.
Okay. And that's the same individual that's mentioned there, right?
Yes.
You previously indicated to us that with regard to Inside Edition, that they came to visit you and that you really didn't solicit them coming out to the jail to talk to you, right?
That's right.
And that you believe that the guard pushed you into that interview, right?
Inside Edition, yes.
And who was that guard? What's that guard's name?
I don't remember her name. It was 5 years ago almost. She didn't push me. She just encouraged me.
Well, who was it? What's the name of this person that encouraged you?
I don't remember her name. They don't wear name tags very often.
But with regard to the visit involving Mark Stanek with ABC News, she had nothing to do with that, right?
No, nothing to do with that one.
And you took his visit, right?
Yes, I did.
You can refuse a visit from anybody you want, correct?
Yes,
And you did not refuse his visit, right?
that's right.
Now, let's take a look at another page. Page 20.
Dean, where do you come up with these? Oh my God.
And there are some words there on page 20. And they're kind of hard to find, but they're in pencil, right? The writings,
I haven't seen him.
those are in pencil, right?
It looks like it, yes.
Pardon?
It looks like it, yes.
Well, no, take a look at it. We want to make sure.
Yes, it is.
And where you are living currently, they do not allow pens, right?
That's right.
They only allow pencils, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
on this page number 20, it says, read it for me.
You testify so.
Okay. Page 37.
Kirk's chuckling, and I don't know why, and I
And
want
you
to
would
know
agree
why.
that the one on page 20 is kind of hard to find. It's kind of right here near the spine of the book, right?
It seems like it, yeah.
Page 37. Has some more writing on it. You see that right there?
Got me like,
Again, if there's too much, let me know and I'll work it.
It looks like it said, oh, you want me to read it? I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
It looks like it says, we can fix this.
We can fix this, right?
Right.
wait, did she hide like, okay.
Page 40.
You'll get there, Juan. You'll get it. You'll get it.
Has some more writing on it, and the lighting's not so good, but it says, what does it say?
Looks like it says directly contradicts what I've been saying for over a year.
Okay.
She said the bin before it appeared. She knew exactly what it said.
And the publishing date on this item is August 2011, correct?
That's correct.
Page 43 says what?
It says, you fucked up what you told my attorney the next day.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
And then page 54 says what?
Interview was excellent, must talk ASAP.
And 56
Hidden notes and messages.
says what?
Get down here ASAP and see me before you talk to them again and before.
Doesn't seem to make much sense, but let me mark an exhibit for you. Take a look at exhibit 468. This contains the pages and what was written on them, doesn't it? And if you need the book, let me know.
Thinking about you. Be safe. Okay?
Yes.
In this case, you can go.
I move for the admission of exhibit 468.
Objection is the foundation.
Okay.
Exhibit 468 is admitted.
In summary, this is what we've just covered, correct, in the magazine?
That's correct.
You should go see a doctor, Lisa.
Let's take a look at the Star magazine, which is exhibit 466. And this is addressed to you, correct?
Yes.
And the date? Can you see that February 6, 2012?
I see July 25th, 2011 up in the corner and February 6th, 2012 there.
If we go to page 82, because if we look at this exhibit number 468, what is written here doesn't seem to make sense, correct?
Not offhand, no.
But if we then go to exhibit 466, there are some numbers at the bottom of that, and they're in pencil, aren't they?
Yes.
And what are those numbers, man?
My understanding is that they're page numbers.
That may be your understanding, but what are the numbers?
Oh, I'm sorry. 43, 40, 56, 20, 37, 54.
Okay.
Bingo. What's his name? Oh.
If we then arrange with an exhibit 468, according to those numbers, man, I want you to take a look at an exhibit.
That's all she got. That really does look like a putt-putt pencil, though, doesn't it? It looks like she was marking scores from
469.
other people during her 18 holes, whatever. I missed this. I love
This is exhibit
labs.
469.
They
Have
love
those
anything.
statements in the order That's set out in the Star magazine.
Which is everything.
Yes.
I think it's amazing they found this. I really, really do.
Move for the admission of exhibit number 469.
No objection, Your Honor.
Overruled Exhibit 469 is admitted.
Read it, please.
Uh-oh, here we go.
You fucked up. What you told my attorney next day directly contradicts what I've been saying for over a year. Get down here ASAP and see me before you talk to them again and before you testify so we can fix this. Interview was excellent. Must talk ASAP.
And ma'am, this
When
was
you
written
put it together.
in these two magazines 4 days
Hello?
when you attempted to transfer them, 4 days before
You can't
the hearing
handle the
on
truth.
8th of 2011.
Check, please.
I don't know when they were written.
Well, this magazine, the Star magazine, as well as the photography magazine, you attempted to transfer those back on August 4th, 4 days before this hearing, right?
Just the magazines, yes.
And I know you keep saying just the magazines. The magazines have your name on them, correct?
Yes, I'm only allowed to release my own property.
Ma'am, I understand that, but those magazines have your name on them, right?
Yes,
And those magazines were in your possession on August 4th of 2011, right?
yes,
And those magazines you had with you when you went to meet with Ann Campbell, right?
I brought them almost to the visit, but they don't go with me to see her.
Excuse me?
They don't go with me to see her. They get passed off to several
He's
different
I
breaking
offices.
understand,
down
but you
story.
brought them from your cell, correct?
Distracting.
And you, at that point, at some point during the visit, requested that these magazines be given to Ann Campbell, right?
Yes,
These two magazines that we're talking about here, correct?
correct.
And
And
Campbell,
that was actually done. You're trying to tell us about the
Hold on.
process. Why don't you tell us what the
hold on, everybody. A lot of people are asking about this. Hold on. 2 magazines, right? He gets into 2 magazines with coded messages. Weren't really a good code there, Jodi. But they were intended to be handed over to Ann Campbell, who was a friend and supporter at the time, who visited Arias in jail every single week. And so she's going back and forth with Ann Campbell, or at least forth with Ann Campbell about this.
process is.
The process is when you want to release property, you have to fill out a request. You have to state your request fairly specifically, what you're releasing, the title of what you're releasing. At least those are the rules now. They've updated it. It was more generic then. And then it is given to an officer who inspects it and then gives it, when it passes inspection, it's given to a sergeant who approves it, and then it's passed off to either.
He's so proud of
I
this
think
because it got through everybody.
it's called, there's a control center. It's given to that officer, and then it's given to visitation officer. So when the visitor leaves, they pick up the property and go.
And that's how this, and you attempted to use that process to get these magazines to Ann Campbell, right?
Yes,
And shortly before August 4th, do you know somebody by the name of Matthew McCartney?
yes, I do.
Shortly before
Related to Paul.
this August 4th date, by shortly I mean within the month, you know that Mr. McCartney was interviewed by the prosecutor, right?
Yes. Yes.
I
Don't
think
lie.
it was around that time.
There
You were in contact with Mr. McCartney about the interview, right? In other words, you let him know that this interview with the prosecutor was going to take place, right?
I think my attorney let him know.
Well, isn't it true that in a telephone that you spoke with Mr. McCartney on the telephone about the requested interview by the prosecutor, Juan Martinez.
Ron, where are you?
that is
In a glass case of
And
emotion.
that interview took place within approximately a month of this August 11th
One wants to
date
break
of the hearing,
free.
right?
One wants to break free.
I wasn't told when it was taking place, but it was close to that time.
And Mr. McCartney is the individual that you testified about previously with whom you had this relationship with, right?
Yes,
And he's somebody that you dated, what, in 2001?
2000 and 2001.
And he's the individual that you said that, well, we kind of broke up because, well, why don't you tell us why you broke up with him? Why you think you broke up with him?
Because he cheated on me.
And you're saying that he cheated on you with somebody named Brianna, right?
Bianca.
Bianca? And what happened with regard to that incident is that he cheated on you, you heard about it, and you heard about it while you were at work, right?
Yes,
Was this at the Purple Plum?
this was at Applebee's.
Applebee's, and you decided to drive about an hour and a half to confront Bianca, right?
Yes,
Because you needed to find out, right?
I needed to know, yes.
You needed to know. Isn't that sort of the same thing that you did with Mr. Alexander in August of 2007 when you saw him kissing with somebody that you went and you asked him about what was going on the night before because you needed to know, right?
Yes,
And so you went up to, was it Crater Lake?
yes,
And you went up to Crater Lake, and this is the place where they have people living in not subsidized housing, but housing that is provided by the employer, right?
yes, they're like dorms.
And you were able to find where this Bianca was, right?
Yes.
How was it that you were able to find this Bianca if you had never had contact with her?
I asked a mutual friend, and he told me what room she was in. So I
Which
went and knocked
mutual
on
friend
it.
did, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I just went and knocked on that door.
Which mutual friend did you ask?
I believe his name was Steve.
And is this the individual that you said that acted really gay,
Everybody
right?
likes a steam.
He was gay.
Not
and
today,
he was acting very
Satan. Not
frantic.
today.
Right. And you indicated that when you came over there, he started to act really frantic, right?
Yes.
And he started to act really frantic just at the sight of you, right?
I think because I was asking about Bianca and he knew about the affair.
Well, he saw you and you started to talk to him, right?
Yes.
When you started to talk to him, did you immediately indicate to him that you wanted to talk about Bianca?
Not about, but to.
So you indicated you wanted to talk to Bianca, right?
Yes.
And immediately, or shortly thereafter, he started to get all flustered, right? Would that be correct or not?
Not when I saw him, but when I went to her room to knock.
So you start talking to him about Bianca and he tells you what place, the room she's staying in, right?
Yes.
And he goes with you, right?
No, he told me the wrong room.
He gave, initially, when you went to see him, he gave you the wrong room, right?
Yes.
And you went to that wrong room.
Yes.
And when you went to that wrong room, did you speak to the people there?
I knocked, nobody answered.
In the meantime, Steve had gone somewhere else, right?
Yes.
He had gone to where Bianca was, right?
Yes.
But you didn't tell Steve why you were there, right?
Just that I wanted to talk to Bianca.
Right, but you didn't tell him why you wanted to talk to her, right?
No, not why.
And it was kind of an unannounced visit, right?
Yes.
And so he took it upon himself, without any prompting from you, to give you the wrong place and then go and talk to Bianca, right?
Yes. Oh.
And then you went, and how was it that you were able to find Bianca's room?
I thought maybe I misheard him and transposed some numbers, so I reversed the two last numbers. It was a three-digit dorm, and I had the right floor, but I just went to the opposite number.
So do you remember the number?
No.
So you went there, and when you got to the door, you heard that there was talking inside, right?
Yes.
And there was talking inside. Would it be characterized as excited inside?
Steve's voice, yes.
Right, and this is the one that you said he was sort of acting gay over dramatic, right?
Yes, dramatic.
And you attributed that to the fact that he was gay, though, right?
It was a feminine tone, so yes.
Well, no, I mean, part of what
Yeah, I
you
get a
told us
feminine
before was
tone,
that,
too.
well, he's kind of gay and he's kind of
He
that
is
way,
gay.
and so that he was being dramatic, right?
He is gay and he was acting dramatic.
And that's what you told us, right?
Yes.
It
Oh,
could
I'm
have also
offended
been that
greatly.
it wasn't because he was gay.
I mean,
It was
I'm half
because he was
offended.
concerned that you were there,
You get
that
it,
he was
but
excited,
offended.
right?
Well, I never said that he was,
See what I did there?
Overruled. You may answer.
I never said he was acting that way because he's gay. I just said the tone of voice, I remember it because it was very feminine and very frantic, almost like a woman.
But you're the one that brought up the fact that he was gay, right?
Yes.
And explaining this to us, right?
Yeah, when I was describing it.
Right. And so you were able to hear his voice through the door, right?
Yes,
And it was an excited tone.
yes,
And that excited tone could be for a myriad of reasons, but one of them was that you were there unannounced, right?
that's right.
And it could be that he was, for whatever reason, excited, or that term, he was excited that you were there, right?
Yeah, it calls for speculation. We don't know why he's
Yes.
excited.
Rephrase the question.
He had,
For
his demeanor when you arrived changed after you asked for Bianca, right?
Oh, righty then.
I didn't notice it change. I just noticed it different after I went to knock on her door.
And his demeanor changed to
He wants one
the
more
fact
win.
that he was more excited,
For a
for lack of a
big
better
old
term.
Yes,
right?
frantic.
And you began to knock on the door, right?
Yes.
Nobody answered, right?
No, they answered.
Initially, right?
Bianca answered. Oh, the
No,
first
not
door?
initially.
Do you mean the first
The
door?
second door. Didn't you say before that you went to that door, you knocked on that door, and nobody answered initially? You heard them talking.
For a second before she came to the door, yeah.
So, so you were there long enough to hear them excitedly talking, right?
Not her, just him.
And how long were you standing there before the door was open?
I'd say 5 seconds or less.
She opened the door, right?
Yes.
And did you recognize her? Well, you did recognize her from her photograph, right?
It looked to be the same person.
Right. And you began to talk to her, right?
Yeah, I asked if she was Bianca.
Right. You began to talk to her, right?
Yes.
And you started to talk to her, and you brought up the subject of Matt McCartney, right?
Yes,
She didn't bring it up, right?
that's right.
And you started to talk to her, and you started to ask her whether or not they had a relationship, right?
Yes,
And you were able to determine that they did, in fact, have a relationship, right?
yes,
And you were able to determine that they, in fact, had been intimate, right?
she indicated they had not had sex, but intimate somewhat, yes.
And man, at that time, when this was going on, you weren't living with Mr. McCartney, right?
No, I was in
Yeah.
Ashland.
Pardon?
I was in Ashland.
And he was where?
He lived at, well, he had moved away from Crater Lake. He had lived at Crater Lake that summer, and now he moved back to Phoenix with his dad at that point.
And your belief was that you and he were still boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, right?
That was my belief.
Actually, he may have had a different belief, as you came to know later, right?
Yes,
He did not believe that you and he had a relationship, but were not boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, right?
I don't know if that was his belief.
Well, you've spoken to him about it, right?
Yes,
And based on your conversation, don't you have a belief that at that time, he didn't think that you and he were boyfriend and girlfriend?
based on that conversation, my belief was that he knew he had
Pardon?
messed up, and he was very sorry for it.
But how long did this conversation take with Bianca?
We actually sat and chit-chatted for about an hour.
And this was at your request, right?
Initially, yeah, I initiated the contact.
And for an hour, you received information about what her relationship was with Mr. McCartney, right?
He wasn't the whole conversation, but initially, yes.
Well, you weren't there to visit with her because you'd driven an hour and a half, right?
Can you say that again?
Well, you weren't there just to chit chat with her, right?
That wasn't the point of the drive, no,
I mean, you wanted to find out what the heck was going on with Mr. McCartney, right?
absolutely.
And so it's fair to say that this wasn't a
Like
situation where
seven-
you were just sitting there
7 months.
chit-chatting about her job or anything like that. It was
Seven weeks,
because
like-
you were interested in finding out what was going
Doctor
on,
and
right?
stuff.
Yes,
Should be
And you were
fun.
satisfied after speaking to her for about an hour, what was going on.
I was satisfied pretty early on,
Um,
not just the hour.
And in fact, isn't it true that you became a bit excited or upset during that conversation?
No.
We are way past 10 o'clock. I promised a preview of the next sidebar at 10 o'clock. Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything. All right. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you a quick something, and then I'll give you just a preview of some of the script here. Nope. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will.
And in the middle of him doing something with his arm or saying something crazy, shot him. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? You know. And he was laying with his face on the table, like twitching. And so I knew he was going to die a very slow and painful death. I knew he was already dead, you know, within the next 20 seconds, within the next 2 minutes, I knew he was going to be dead. And he was in a lot of pain. He was twitching, he was moaning, but he was ultimately dead. And so I shot him enough times to kill him so that he wouldn't suffer at that point, which was a few more times. And I shot him, I think I shot him twice, thought he was completely dead, and he was laying there still, twitching and making noises. And I shot him in the head. I probably should have left it there, but I knew he was going to die. Mm-hmm. Or have a very deformed face. And you were concerned. And I knew, oh no, he would have died. He was already dying. He was dying. But I just walked around the table and shot him where I knew he would die immediately. And fast. His obsession with guns killed him. You know, I would have never, I'm so Democrat, I would have never touched a gun in my life until I dated him. I'm not your typical murderer. No, not someone that you see on.
You're Shayna Hubers.
He said, you're just a hillbilly from Kentucky. And I am. I guess just the hillbilly came out of me. I took up. And if it matters now, it's the worst thing I've ever done my whole life. But I feel
Ron, where are you?
it's sad that part of me doesn't feel bad about it. That part of me does, you know what I mean?
Wait for it.
And part of me is like, you hit me, he threw me. You just don't treat a woman like that. I was in high school and she was a convicted felon. She told me that the women that she was for cocaine. She told me that the women that she got along with in jail or prison are the women that were there because they had killed her husband. And said that hell has no fury like a woman's scorn.
I'll tell you in a second.
Never believed it until now. How sweet the sound that sings. Oh,
Fun, huh? By that I mean, oh my God. All right, here's a couple lines from the script. At some point, just like with everything, Ryan accepted the relationship was going too far. He sent a text to his cousin that read, quote, "This is getting to be restraining order crazy. She's shown up at my condo like 3 times and refuses to leave each time." You see, if Ryan didn't answer his phone, she would call his office or randomly stop by. He sent her many, many texts asking her to please stop contacting him, and she never listened. Again, he continued the on and off relationship because he didn't like making her feel bad. Shayna also had her own key to Ryan's condo, and in addition, she also had an apartment in Lexington, Kentucky, about 80 miles away. But here's the thing. She would come over uninvited all the time. There were times when he had to leave his own condo and go stay the night at his dad's house because she wouldn't leave. She texted a friend telling her that she and Ryan were going to a gun range. She said, quote, "When I go to the shooting range with Ryan tonight, I want to turn around and shoot and kill him and play like it's an accident," end quote. So that's our next sidebar, Shayna Hubers. Oh boy, what a situation. Get ready for it. I'll let you know when it's coming. Woof.
At any time did you raise your voice to Bianca?
Definitely not. I was in her home.
And in this place, Crater Lake, was what, an hour and a half from where you were living in Ashland, right?
About 70 miles.
But it's an hour and a half driving, right?
I think so, yes. About an hour and a half.
And then after that, where did you go?
After that, it was very late. I didn't want to drive the hour and a half back because I fell asleep. So I went and stayed at in a mutual friend's dorm. There were 2.
And what's that friend's name?
Eddie.
Eddie what?
Eddie Lee.
And how did you know Eddie Lee?
I knew him because his parents also owned a restaurant in Wairika, as did my parents at that time. And
How old were you when this was happening?
how old was I?
Yes.
I believe I just turned 21.
And your parents still own a restaurant, right?
No, not at that time.
They had owned one up to how old were you when?
Nice.
I think I was 16 when they closed it the first time, 16 or 17.
Right about the time you moved out of their home.
Where are
It was I moved out after they closed it.
you? Are a meathead.
Growing up, they had more than one restaurant, though, right?
Yes.
And how many restaurants did your family have?
Total that I know of, 6 or 7.
And growing up, there really wasn't any financial problems, was there?
Early on, there was not.
And early on, there were trips to Disneyland, for example, right?
Yes, when I was very young.
And when you say very young, we're talking up to 6, 7, or 8, right?
Under 10.
And during that time, it was what
Just say
has been
yes.
described as what you've described as an idyllic sort of environment, right?
Yes, somewhat.
If you haven't seen any of
And
the other
then at
sidebars,
some
go back,
point-
go to the playlist and watch them.
The restaurant issues started.
Kinda what we're gonna
there
do with the
became
next
an
one.
issue with the restaurants, right?
Yes, I believe, my understanding is it was an issue.
And Mr. McCartney, where was he living at the time that you went to see Bianca?
He was living in Phoenix, Oregon with his dad.
And he had a room there, correct?
Oh boy.
I believe he had his own room there, yes.
And sometimes when Mr. McCartney, what town did he live in again?
Phoenix, Oregon?
And after this conversation, you and he broke up, right?
Yes, after he got back from Borrego Springs.
Pardon?
After he returned from Borrego Springs, that's where he was that night.
Okay, he came up and what town did you meet in? Phoenix? Is that where you met?
Yes.
And that's when you decided that was the end of it, right? You decided that, right?
I don't remember. It was just a lot of tears, and it was obvious that the trust was gone and there was not any kind of relationship anymore.
And basically, that's the same reason why you and Mr. Alexander broke up, because according to you, the trust was gone, right?
That's right.
And so after the trust is gone with Mr. McCartney, though, you still continue sort of seeing him, don't you?
There were some blurred boundaries, but we were not boyfriend, girlfriend.
And in fact, you even stayed together at Crater Lake or Ventana Inn together after this, right? After you broke up, right?
We crashed in a tent for 2 weeks, but we were not together
Always
after
proper.
at Ventana.
But you did have intercourse with him after this breakup, didn't you? Do you remember telling us that on direct
Yes,
examination?
one time.
One time, but you did though, right?
Yes.
And did he continue to live at his parents' house?
He moved down to Ventana to find work also. He was looking for seasonal work.
Right, and at Ventana, this is where they have the places to stay as part of the job, right?
Yes, more employee housing.
And where were you when he was at Ventana?
I was hired at Ventana first, and then he applied for a job right after me, and he was hired also.
And you and he were not sharing, were you sharing the same bed or not?
After I got housing, no, we were not.
Right. Isn't it true that after you
Good
got
night.
housing though, you would, when he wasn't around, go over to wherever he was staying and stay in his bed?
He didn't have a bed, he lived in a tent, and no, that's not true.
So how long did you continue to see him?
Well, we were no longer romantic. We just hung out more like friends.
But you continue to be friends up to this day though, haven't you?
We've sort of lost contact, but yeah, we're still friends.
And, well, you at least had contact with him involving the interview with the prosecutor though, right?
I believe I did, but I know my attorneys did for sure.
I'm not interested in what your attorneys did. I'm interested in what you did. Isn't it true that you had contact with him, right?
Yes.
And when you made your trip down from Wairika to kill Mr. Alexander, you stopped in the Monterey area, didn't you?
I can't answer your question the way it's phrased.
You didn't stop in the Monterey, didn't drive through the Monterey area?
I did stop in the Monterey area.
And one of the people that you saw in the area was Matthew McCartney, right?
Yes.
And did he live in Seaside then?
I believe he lived in Pacific Grove
And that's the same.
or Monterey. I mean, the border is they were right next to each other.
And so you actually stopped to see him back on June 3rd of 2008, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you spent the night with him June 2nd to the morning of June 3rd, right?
Yes, I crashed on the floor.
But you spent the night with him, right?
Not with him, no.
Okay, you spent the night at his apartment, right?
Him and his roommate, yes.
Okay, he and his roommate had an apartment. You spent the night there, correct?
It was like a house. I stayed the night there in the room that they shared.
In the house, they had a room together, both of them, right?
Yes.
And you stayed in the same room with these two individuals, right?
Yes, on the floor.
All right. And the three of you were in the room. though,
I've
is
never
the point
seen
then,
this.
Right?
Yes, when we slept, yes.
And you guys went to sleep around midnight and you got up at what time the next morning, which would have made it the 3rd. What time did you get up?
I don't know what time we went to sleep, and I woke up sometime in the morning.
And did he go with you to see Mr. Brewer or not?
No.
And so you, after seeing him though, there, you parted ways and you left, right? And went to Salinas, right?
Yes, I did. Yes, went to Salinas.
Pardon?
I went to Salinas.
And how far is Salinas from Pacific Grove, Seaside, Monterey, whatever the area is? How far is it?
My recollection is that it's between 20 and 30 minutes, depending on the traffic.
And you were sort of detouring to Salinas for some cosmetic work, right?
Well, I had to go to Salinas anyway to get on the road because I have to take Highway 101, south.
But you did go, when you went to Salinas, you did get some cosmetic work, right?
Yes, my nails.
Right, and you said it took a long time, right?
Yes.
And what kind of place was that in Salinas?
It was at a strip
Yeah, you
mall,
can't finish that line.
somewhat,
What was the name of it?
Nothing.
How about that?
I don't
We
know.
only
It was one of those
whatsoever
little
the
operations
rest of that line.
where people are just coming and going. There was a long wait.
And they only do nails, according to you then?
It looked like they did pedicures also. I don't remember if there was hair or not, but just definitely nails and feet.
But it could have been a place, a salon where they also did hair, right?
It might have been.
And do you remember the name of this place at all?
No.
Overruled. What time did you get to Salinas?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
And how long were you in Salinas?
Few hours. I don't remember. I know that I wanted to get on the road, but
So what time did you get on the road?
it was still light out, but I don't remember the time.
This was after you had been over to Mr. Brewer's house, right?
Yes.
You were there for a time and then you left Mr. Brewer's house, right?
Yes.
And then you went back to return something, right?
If I remember from his recollection, I kind of remember it.
Well, I'm not asking for his, I'm asking for your recollection. Do you remember coming back and giving him something?
Always a cougher.
I remember. I don't actually remember it.
Then I don't want you to tell me if you don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Judge,
Yes, all right, ladies and gentlemen, Monday.
Hey, look, we're continuing on.
Counsel, Mr. Nermy, you wanted to make a record.
We do, Your Honor.
Is that a
We
reference
see
to the
present in the
TV
courtroom
show
today here is
Bunkers
Mr. Dave Hall. According to what we've seen on television through the HLN network, Mr. Hall provided a video of Mr. Alexander at a shooting range, shooting guns.
If I do that,
What we would ask, now that he is here,
I don't wanna do
subject to the
that.
power of the Arizona courts, that he be asked to provide the court and/or both parties with a copy of said video.
He's a
That he be ordered to do so
man-eater.
by the end of this week.
Oh,
Mr. Hall,
there
where are you,
goes.
sir? Do you have any objection to providing a copy,
No objection.
video to the attorneys?
That's fine.
When can you do that, sir?
Okay.
All right, they'll be so ordered. Anything else?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Wow. on
I would
top of
note
it.
that we would then call him as a rebuttal witness to indicate that Mr. Alexander did not have any handguns and that anytime he was shooting, we would have to borrow them. Apparently, that's my understanding as to the handgun issue.
We won't hold you.
In light
in
of that, I suppose there's a request to have him leave the courtroom.
Yes, Your Honor, that would be correct. Of course, we would object to him being called as well because based on what he has said on these television programs, he has been watching the coverage and commentating vigorously on that. So one of certainly an abundance of caution, we would have him excluded from the courtroom. But as of now, we'd make a record that we do not believe he is a viable and appropriate witness given his watching of the trial.
Mr. Nermy, was Mr. Hall under subpoena to your knowledge prior to today?
No, it's not that he violated a subpoena, it's just his viability as a witness because he has watched the trial.
Well, that's certainly something you could cross-examine in the event that he is called. Mr. Hall, in light of the state's indication that you will be called as a witness during the rebuttal case, I'm going to ask that you leave the courtroom. In addition, I'm going to ask that you not watch anything on the media, on television, read anything about the case between now and when you are called as a witness. All right? Thank you, sir. All right, is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Did any of you see or hear anything about this case in the media
I'm
in the
connected.
past week?
I'm like collecting all of these.
I see no hands. Did anyone attempt to discuss this case with you during the past week or at any time? I see no hands. Ms. Arias, you are still under oath. Do you understand?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, you
How
may
could you
continue with
avoid
cross-examination.
stuff about this trial? Like
Ma'am,
at
you
least one of
have
them's
a problem with the truth, telling the truth, don't you?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
Not typically.
Well, when it's to your benefit, you will lie, right?
Objection, argumentative.
The state.
Ma'am, do you remember having a conversation with Detective Flores of the Mesa Police Department back on July 15th of 2008?
Yes.
And this was the day that you were arrested, right?
Yes.
cross is
And during that
dramatic.
time, you told him something, and let's take a look at it right now. This is Exhibit 378.
It's at night and you go to sleep.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Objection,
I
Your
was
Honor.
always,
We approach.
You may.
Gentlemen, you should disregard what you just saw on the screen. You may continue.
Something they already saw? All right.
Ma'am, this is exhibit 348.
I mean, they all want brain seats already. Oh, here we go. Oh,
a lot of details in this case that haven't been released to the public and not even to Travis's family. And those details are known only by us and the person who did it. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I'm here, is because I believe that you know some of these details. And I think you can help us.
I would love to help you in any way that I can.
Okay.
Did you hear yourself telling the detective that you would help them in any way that you could?
Yes.
That's not true, is it?
I don't know. I guess it depends on what help means.
Yes or no? Were you there to help him?
No.
I don't know.
Were you there to tell the truth?
No.
No.
That wasn't the truth, was it? That you were there to help him, was it?
No, that was not the truth.
And in fact, you were there for a different purpose. You were there so that he wouldn't get the truth, right?
No, I was there against my will.
You were there against your will. You didn't have to talk to him, did you?
In hindsight, I realized
Yes
I
or
didn't
no?
have to.
Did you have to talk to him? I'm not asking you about hindsight. Isn't it true that you could have chosen not to talk to him, right?
I could have, I think.
And well, you keep saying, I think.
At the time, I didn't know
Ma'am,
that.
I'm asking you. You keep saying, I think. Isn't it true that you had an opportunity to stop talking to him, but you chose to talk to him? Yes or no?
That's true.
And during that time, you told him certain things, right?
Yes.
And in fact, when you spoke to the detective, one of the things that you told him was that you were never there, right?
Yes.
And by there, I mean at the crime scene, right?
Yes.
And you told us previously, well, the reason that I liked him was because I was ashamed. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
Just because you're ashamed, that gives you the right to lie?
Objection, argument.
Sustained.
Well, ma'am, the fact that you were ashamed, do you think that justifies what you did?
Objection, argument.
Overruled.
No.
And do you think, the other thing that you said, well, you know, I knew it was going to happen, but I was trying to postpone the inevitable. Is that what you were doing when you were lying?
No, because the inevitable had occurred.
Pardon?
The inevitable had already occurred.
The inevitable to you was being arrested then, right?
Yes.
So if being arrested had already occurred, then why didn't you tell the truth?
I was ashamed.
So, which is what you told us before, right?
Before when?
Today. Isn't that the word that we just talked about? You were ashamed?
Yes.
So are you having problems remembering what you said a couple minutes ago?
No.
So you were ashamed. What could you possibly be ashamed of other than that you killed Travis Alexander, right?
Right.
That was the biggest part of the shame.
Oh, so there were other things that you were ashamed of more than killing Mr. Alexander then?
Yes.
Objection, mischaracterizes testimony.
Overruled. Yes?
Yes.
And one of the other things that you were, well, and the reason that you were ashamed of killing Mr. Alexander is because that was going to have some repercussions for you, wasn't there?
Part of the reason, yes.
Again, part of the reason. The other reason was that you were feeling scared, right?
That's part of the reason too.
So if you feel scared, you believe that then it's okay to lie.
No, that's not true.
Well, that's what you did though, right?
Yes, it is.
So that's no excuse then, right?
No, it isn't.
And in fact, there's nothing that the detective ever did to get you to say whatever it was that you said at the first interview, right?
Not that I recall.
Well, again, we're with the memory issue.
That darn
Ma'am, are
racist,
you
right?
having problems remembering what happened back on July 15th of 2008?
No.
So he didn't do anything then, right?
I can't think of any examples.
Right, because he didn't do anything, right?
Anything what?
What are we talking about, ma'am? Are you again having problems understanding what's going on?
Finish her. Questions, that's.
Overruled. You may answer.
I don't understand his question.
Ma'am, the detective didn't do anything during the interview to cause you to lie, right?
No.
And the detective admonished you or gave you your Miranda warnings, didn't he?
Yes.
And he sat and he talked to you, right?
Yes.
And one of the other things that you told them was that, well, told us here in court was that the reason that you lied was because you were thinking about your family, right?
That was one of the reasons.
That's one of the reasons that you told us, right?
Yes.
How is it that, so then what you're telling us is there's a good reason for it, it's okay to lie?
That's not what I'm telling anyone.
Well, you were saying you were thinking about your family, right?
I did say that.
And that's a good reason or an excuse for you to lie then, right?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, that's the way you didn't you tell us on direct examination that the reason that you lied was because you were thinking in part about your family? Yes or no?
Yes, I said that.
And so then the way you were conveying it to us was that it was okay. That's a good excuse to lie.
If I conveyed it that way, I didn't mean to.
Well, because you still have a family, right?
Yes.
So, but you did say that you were concerned about your family, right?
Yes, I did.
You were concerned about your reputation, right?
Yes, I was.
And so you were thinking more of yourself when you made this statement to this detective, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, other than you, who would be sure about your statement?
God.
Well, God's not here. We can't subpoena him, right?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Are you sure that we can't? Because it seems like you're leaving the door open for that.
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
With regard to this
Objection,
issue
hearsay,
of this
hearsay.
interview, it was for, when you lied, it was to benefit you, right?
It was not for my benefit.
Well, it wasn't hurting you when you were lying, was it? If he would have believed your lie, it would have helped you, right?
It was hurting me to lie.
Pardon?
It was hurting me to lie.
It was very what?
It was hurting me to lie.
So in other words, you're saying that when you're talking to this detective, it was hurting your case to lie?
Yes.
You didn't know that at that time, did you?
No.
You took a chance by lying, didn't you?
I wouldn't call it that.
Well, yes, you did take a chance because you were hoping.
Objection, argumentative.
I don't have a question, honey.
Finish your question.
You were hoping, ma'am, that he would believe what you were saying so that you could then walk out of that jail, right?
No, that's not right.
What other reason would you have to lie other than that it would benefit you?
I assumed that though that video would become public one day and I didn't want my family to see me admitting to something like that.
So, but you admitted it now.
Yes.
Your family's here, right?
Yes.
There are cameras everywhere, right?
Yes.
What has changed other than geography?
Time.
Time has changed. Oh, so a lie back then can be morphed into the truth now because time has changed, right?
Nothing has been morphed.
Well, you're saying that time has made the change that allows you to say something here, right? That you didn't say before.
Take a chance.
An internal change, yes.
Take a chance.
So you were saying that back then you were geared to lie.
No.
Well, that's what you said. There's been an internal change, right?
Yes.
And so this internal change, before that internal change, back on July 15th of 2008, that was part of the reason why you lied, this internal issue or change or problem, whatever it was, right?
Yes, I had a problem.
And that problem allowed you to lie, right?
The ultimate shade
Why don't you know how
of
to
it
answer it? You're the
all.
one that brought this up about your internal problem.
Objection, asked and answered, argumentative.
Restate your question.
Everything's
This
been
internal
argumentative.
issue that you had, that made it, in your mind, okay for you to lie back on July 15th of 2008, right?
I didn't consider it okay.
Well, you didn't consider it bad, did you?
I did.
Well, you kept doing it over and over throughout the whole interview, didn't you?
Yes.
And at no time did you stop the interview and say
Proud
to
you don't
yourself,
understand.
this is not the thing to do, right?
I did.
You did tell him something different during that interview?
No, you said say to yourself, not him.
So, but when you're talking to yourself, no one can hear you, right?
Yes.
And
Unless
it's really
I'm talking
hard
out
for
loud.
people to corroborate what you're thinking if we don't know what you say, right?
Yes.
So we have to take your word that that's what you were thinking internally, right?
Yes. But They
Yes
crossed
or
my mind.
no? Yes or no?
I said yes.
And so with this interview, you then started to talk about whether or not you had been in Arizona, right?
Yes,
You said, no, you hadn't been in Arizona, right?
that's right.
That's an absolute lie, right?
Yes,
And the reason that you didn't want to admit to being in Arizona is because you knew that you had killed Travis Alexander, right?
yes,
You didn't tell that to the detective, right?
that's right.
And additionally, during that whole interview, you gave excuse after excuse as to why you weren't the person that had done this, right?
Yes.
So safe to say that the whole interview was a lie, right?
Not the whole
Talking
interview,
to
but
my
anything
7-year-old.
regarding my presence there on June 4th, yes.
Anything having to do with responsibility in this crime was a lie, correct?
Yes,
And the reason you did that was because it was to your benefit, right?
Objection, asked and answered, Mr. Testimony.
that's not the reason I did it.
Well, it didn't hurt you, did it, back then? In the moment, it didn't hurt you, did it?
It did.
How did it hurt you in the moment if you had already been charged? It didn't change anything.
What do you mean?
In the moment, at that time, how could it possibly have hurt you since you'd already been charged? It didn't change anything, did it?
It did change things to lie.
Well, it didn't change where you were staying, did it?
No,
It didn't change the fact that you were still charged, right?
that's right.
It didn't.
What if her bangs are a barcode and we should have been
What did
scanning
it
it the
change?
entire
man?
time?
Tell me what it changed on that day.
It probably changed my whole future.
I'm not asking about your future. I'm asking what it changed on that day.
Objection, she's asking this question.
Good question.
Now, the other, you had time to think
Your
about.
Honor, she should be able to give the time to answer.
Answer what? There's no question before.
Yeah, there was.
Oh my gosh. Yes, there
I
was.
think
Yes,
she
there was.
answered the question.
9 o'clock
Continue.
Eastern. 9 o'clock
Now,
Eastern.
after that interview, you then
At the
had
current moment.
another chance to have a conversation with Detective Flores the next day, right?
Yes,
And again, it was a voluntary conversation, wasn't it?
yes,
And it was the same situation as the day before, right? He sat down, he asked you questions, right?
yes,
On the previous day, he really hadn't given you too much information about the crime, right?
not too much.
No.
Looking QR
And it was
codes
actually
not
during the
popular then.
second interview that he started to give you some information, right?
Yes,
And in fact, he showed you some photographs, right?
I think that was the 16th, yes.
Excuse me?
I think that was on the 16th.
Why don't you just pull the microphone a little bit closer?
Yeah, not close enough.
So you think that it was on the 16th when he provided you more information, right?
Yes, if I remember correctly.
A scanner or a
One
spanner?
of the things that you said was that somehow you weren't very sophisticated in dealing with law enforcement. You told us that during direct examination, right?
That's correct.
And just because you're not sophisticated or haven't dealt with law enforcement in the past, do you think that that gives you an excuse to lie?
No,
But you did it anyway, right?
yes, I did.
And you told us that, yes, you were unsophisticated with law enforcement, right?
Yes,
So then what difference does it make if you're unsophisticated with law enforcement in terms of telling the truth or a lie?
I don't know.
But you brought it up on direct examination,
Shut
didn't you?
down your phone entirely.
Yes, I did.
And you did it because you wanted people to feel sorry for you, right?
No.
Objection, argument.
Overruled.
No,
But it didn't have anything to do with the conversation that you had with Detective
Bangers
Forrest,
and
did
mash?
it?
what?
I think it's
That you were
sausages.
unsophisticated.
I don't understand.
He asked you questions, ma'am, and you gave him answers on July 16th of 2008, right?
That's right.
The fact that you may not have dealt with another police officer before didn't change the fact that he was asking you questions and you were answering, right?
Yes,
Big Daddy, you're close.
Didn't
35
change the
cents.
fact that he was
35
speaking
cents, always
English to you,
35
right?
cents.
that's right.
And you understood what he was asking, right?
Mostly, yes.
Are you saying that you didn't understand what Detective Flores was asking you during that interview?
That's not what I'm saying.
Validation.
Well, I'm asking you whether or not you understood what he was asking you if he was speaking English.
I understood the English words, sometimes not the meaning of the question.
Oh, so you're going behind the meaning of the question to say that maybe you didn't understand his motive for the question, right?
I'm not sure if I was considering his motive.
Well, you said that you're not sure about whether or not you understood the question because of what was behind the question, right?
His meaning, yes.
His meaning. Well, his meaning can be expressed through his words, right?
Yes.
He was asking you certain things, and then you were answering whatever it was that you wanted to answer, right?
Yes.
And you chose to change your story from the day before, right?
Yes.
And you chose to change the story was because it benefited you, right?
No.
Well, there's a reason that you changed your story, right?
Yes.
Because the story the day before didn't work, right?
I don't know.
Well, you were still in jail, right?
Yes.
And nothing had changed, right?
Not that I remember.
Well, again, I ask you, do you have problems with your memory about that, any events? It seems like you keep telling me that you have problems with your memory. Do you have problems with your memory?
Occasionally.
You didn't seem to have any problems on direct examination when you were talking to us about all the sexual exploits with Mr. Alexander.
I did have problems.
You regaled us for days on end about his exploits, didn't you?
I wouldn't say regaled.
Okay, you told us about it for days on end, didn't you?
I just answered the questions I
Yes
was
or
asked.
no?
Yes.
You told us. When the question was posed, you told us, didn't you?
To the best of my recollection.
Is anybody saying that you didn't do it to the best of your recollection?
You're implying that?
Ma'am, isn't it true that what the prosecutor's implying is that you knew too much during the direct examination? If we're talking about implications,
Well, then that would be false.
well, isn't it true that you had a great memory when you were on direct examination with regard to issues involving Mr. Alexander's sexual exploits?
Objection, I'm going to ask an answer.
Sustained rephrase.
I like
Told
how
us a lot about
trial when they object,
you
they
and
just
Mr.
put all the
Alexander's
reasons, like all of
sexual
the above,
dalliances,
just in
right?
case one of them works.
Yes.
And you were able to give us
One does it with
dates,
like four
right?
things at the same time.
Usually.
Well, a lot of the times you were able to give us dates, right?
Yes.
You were able to tell us what happened, right?
Usually.
Well, a lot of the time. For example, the first time that, according to you, you had
wiggled.
oral sex, you were able to tell us when that was, right?
Yes.
You were able to tell us how it happened, right?
Yes.
You were able to tell us where it was, right?
Not really.
Yes.
And that was before
It's like watching the
July
tennis match from
16th
hell.
of 2008, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was in November of 2006, right?
No.
You don't want to
When
know.
was it then?
Week after we met, September
So when was that?
2006.
That's
It was in
what the ends.
2006, and so a week after you met what, in June what?
Early September 2006.
So you do have a good memory, right? You just showed me that you have a good memory for events that occurred before July 16th of 2008, right?
I reviewed those things, so there I memorized them.
Oh, so you actually sat down and you memorized it. How is it that you what did you memorize it from?
Date and time stamps.
I know, but what did you memorize it from, ma'am? Are you
Photographs.
talking that you sat down with a police report and then you memorized it?
No, they were photographs.
Pardon?
They were photos.
Family photos?
Photos.
Photographs. So you looked at some photographs then, right?
Yes.
Oh, so there were photographs of the first time that you had oral intercourse with Mr. Alexander?
No.
Well, then what is it that you reviewed that gives you this knowledge?
Photographs of the
fascinating.
convention in Las Vegas 2006 that were date and time stamped.
So it was in July of 2006, is this when this happened, right?
September.
And it was in September of 2006 that you,
Bah.
were there photographs of it?
Night court.
Convention, yes.
Were there photographs at or near the time of
Sitting
this
here
oral
with a
sex
bottle.
that you
I think we're
regaled
fine.
us with?
I don't think so.
So you, but you do have an independent recollection of it, don't you?
What do you mean by that?
Do you have an independent memory of having oral intercourse with Mr. Alexander the first time it happened?
You mean, I don't know what you mean. Independent of what?
Do you have a memory of the first time you had oral intercourse with Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
So you do remember it then, right?
Yes.
And you remember where it was, right?
Yes.
So that event was before this July 16th of 2008 interview, right?
Yes.
That was further in time, right?
Yes.
You didn't seem to have too much of a memory problem with that, right?
That's right.
Did you ever review anything else with regard to the July 16th, 2008 interview?
Very briefly, it makes me sick.
Is that a yes or no?
I guess that would be,
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Are you
So you
are
did
you
review
7?
parts, at least according to you, the way you're saying it, of the interview that you had on July 16th of 2008, right?
yes.
And you're saying that your memory of what happened on July 16th of 2008 is so clouded today that it's only based on that review?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You do have an independent recollection of it then, right?
Cringe.
What do you mean by independent?
Independent means coming from inside of your head.
What?
It's based on what I've reviewed.
So everything that you have told us then in this case is based on what you reviewed?
I'm referring to July 16th.
So everything with regard to July 16th is based on what you reviewed. You don't have any other recollection.
Not everything, but most of it.
Do you remember that you lied?
Yes.
And do you remember what you lied about?
Yes.
Yes, sir. And do you remember that you lied about the killing of Travis Alexander, right?
Yes.
And that, you know, is a change from what
Baloney.
you said the day before, right?
Yes.
And it was a drastic change, right?
Yes.
It was a total change because now it was, you were there, right?
Yes.
You knew that that would be important, right?
Yes.
And in fact, what you were trying to do is because the detective had already told you about the fingerprints, didn't he?
I think he did, yes.
And he also told you about the hair that was there, correct?
Yes.
You guys talked about DNA analysis, didn't you?
Yes.
And you talked about, and he showed you the photograph with a foot in it, with your foot in it. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So after he showed, and you don't deny that that's your foot in the photograph, do you?
I don't deny it.
And after he told you that, that's when you changed your story, didn't you?
Yes.
And you changed your story to conform with the forensic evidence that he was telling you about, right?
That's right.
And that was because you wanted to make up a story that conformed with that, with what he was telling you, right?
Yes, as much as possible.
Because you did not want any consequences with regard to the killing of Travis Alexander, right?
I wasn't concerned about consequences at that point.
Ma'am, do you think it's a good excuse to lie just because this detective is giving you some forensic evidence?
No.
But it's a good reason to lie if you want to get out of whatever you are being talked about, right?
That wasn't my goal, so.
Well, was your goal to go to prison?
Not a physical prison on earth, no.
Well, ma'am, was your goal so your goal was not to go to prison then, right?
It wasn't a goal of mine, I can say.
And in fact, that was something that you were trying to avoid, right?
I don't know. I was trying to kill myself, I think.
Ma'am, you've said that many times, that you tried to kill yourself, right? In court.
I don't know that many, but I've recounted a time that I did.
You've said it more than 3, 4, 5 times, right?
Perhaps.
And in fact, one of the things that you told us about was that, well, when you were in the Maricopa County Jail, that you tried to kill yourself, right?
No, Siskiyou County Jail.
Siskiyou County Jail. So you do remember that. And that when you tried to do that, you took some Advil. Do you remember telling us about that?
Yes.
And that what you did then is you took a razor, right?
Yes.
And that you cut yourself, right?
It was a nick.
It was a nick. And because it stung so much, that you said, nah, this is not the way for me to go, right?
I didn't say that. I
You
just,
said it stung and that's why you stopped. Isn't that what your direct testimony was?
that night, yes.
Right. And that's the night that I'm talking to you about, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking to you about any other night, am I?
It sounded like you were.
No, just to be clear, I'm not talking about any other night, am I?
Kirk.
Do you understand that?
Okay,
Kirk.
I understand that.
Kirk's
And
like,
you nicked yourself and it hurt, right?
now you know
Yes.
how I
And I think the
feel.
word that you used stung, right?
Yes.
To use your standard, ma'am, of how you stopped because it stung. Can you imagine how much it must have hurt Mr. Alexander when you stuck that knife right into his chest? That really must have hurt, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained. You may continue.
You also told a story, right? To the
Yes.
detective, right?
Yes.
Cheers.
And your story was that it was two individuals that came in, right?
Yes.
And one individual was a male, right?
Yes.
And another one was a female, right?
Yes.
And you know that the police are going to follow up on that, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Do you think that police don't investigate crimes, that if somebody provides them a lead, do you think that they don't go out and try to find out if it's true or not?
Objection, Mr. Rollins.
Approach.
Did you consider the consequences of your lie?
No.
No, because it was all about you, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Didn't consider the consequences, but yet you went even further than saying that it was two people, right? You said other things, right?
Yes.
And that was totally different than what you had said the day before, right?
Yes.
And what you said was that these people, you were taking a photograph, right?
Yes.
You never mentioned anything about dropping a camera, did you?
No.
And you never mentioned anything about running down the hallway or anything like that, did you?
No.
We need opinion
And
to come in.
what you did say is that you were down, somebody hit you on the head, right?
Yes.
That you heard a pop, right?
Yes.
And that while this was going on, you heard Mr. Alexander moaning or uttering some words, right?
Screaming.
Screaming. And you heard him screaming to go, you said that he was screaming to go to the neighbors, right?
Yes.
And at some point you said that you saw Mr. Alexander on all fours, right?
Yes.
And that he couldn't move his feet or feel his legs, right?
I said that he said that.
Pardon?
I said that he said that.
But he wasn't moving, was he?
He was,
According to your story, he wasn't moving, was he?
I don't remember. He was lethargic is what I think I said. He said. I said that he said.
You weren't able to get him out of there, according to your story, right?
That's correct.
But you were able, at some point, according to you, get out of there, right?
Yes.
And that's what you told the detective, right?
Yes.
And the reason you told the detective this lie was because you didn't want to be charged in this case, didn't you?
That's not the reason.
Was the reason that you told him that because
Really?
you did want to be charged in this case?
Really?
What did you say?
I said, was the
Jodi.
reason that you told him that because you did want to be charged in this case?
Because I did.
Yes, you said you didn't. Ma'am, didn't you just tell me that the reason you told him that was not because you didn't want to be charged? That's what you just said, right?
That wasn't the reason I told him that. That's correct.
Well, you didn't tell him the story just so you could be charged, right?
That's also correct.
So you told him a story for a reason, right?
Yes.
Is it the embarrassment factor now?
That was part of it.
And so it's more important to you about your feelings of embarrassment than to tell the truth.
You say that as present tense. That's not correct.
I'm talking about back on July 16th of 2008. Your feelings of embarrassment were more important than telling the truth, right?
I didn't really weigh importance.
Well,
Ryan, I
you
feel like
said
that
that
needs to
one
be
of the
celebrated.
reasons that you didn't tell the truth was because of embarrassment, right?
I think shame would be more correct.
All right, let's go with the word shame then. Because of you were thinking of shame back then, that's why you didn't tell him the truth, right?
That's just part of the reason, the
Part of
bigger
it.
part.
And that shame is what, on you?
Yes,
And you are ashamed because you killed him? Is that what it is?
I was definitely ashamed of that and other things.
But you were also ashamed that it would get out that you were the person that did it, right?
Certainly.
And so, to you, the fact that your feelings, in this case being ashamed, are so strong back then that that was an excuse, a good excuse for your lie, right?
It wasn't the sole deciding factor, but it was a big reason.
It was a big reason, but my question is much more direct than that. My question is, this feeling ashamed was more important to you then than telling the truth.
Yes.
I wouldn't say important, but it felt stronger.
Yes.
All right, to use your phrase, your feeling of being ashamed was strong back then to the point that it overrode your telling the truth, right?
That's right.
But that's no excuse, is it?
No,
Nothing that you might have been feeling at that time was an excuse to lie, right?
that's right.
But you still chose to do it, right?
Yes,
Because it would have benefited you, whether it was because you felt ashamed or because you didn't want to tell about it, right?
I wasn't thinking of benefits.
What's that?
I was not thinking of benefits.
Well, you weren't thinking of telling the truth, were you?
I was thinking about it.
But you didn't do it.
No, I didn't.
And this factor of being ashamed. What other factors did you consider, ma'am?
I considered if I told the truth, then I would have to explain why. And if I had to explain why, then I would have to go back through our whole history, back to things that he was very ashamed of, that I was ashamed of. But I just didn't want to get out.
But didn't you just, in this trial, haven't you through 8 days tell us all of that stuff?
Yeah, I think it was 9 days.
Okay, 9 days. You have a good memory. For 9 days, you told us all of that stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't based on my memory. Someone told me 9 days.
What? What do you mean? What did you just say? Somebody told you what?
You said I had a good memory because I corrected you, but it wasn't based on my memory. Someone had said I was on the stand for 9 days, so that's why I said 9.
So it isn't on. So what you're testifying to isn't necessarily what you know. Then is what you're telling us.
Pause for the cause. Everybody say happy birthday to True Crime Ranch, aka Candace. It's tomorrow. That's right. Called you out. You think I don't notice these things? I do. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mrs. President. Happy birthday to you. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
That's right.
That's what I believe.
Well, you just said that it's what somebody told you, right?
Yes.
So, are you testifying based on what something somebody told you instead of what you know?
In that case, yeah.
Well, no, not in that case. I'm talking about what you're telling us here today. Are you telling us these things because you know them or because somebody told you?
The things I'm saying right now are because I know them.
Except for the number of days you were on this witness stand, right? That one, somebody told you that one.
What?
Someone told me that one.
What? What? She says nothing all day. Says nothing all day. Well, happy birthday to you too, Mrs. President. I'll have to pay for it if I sing it again. Probably not, but happy birthday. I could sing the Weird Al version, probably by memory, but happy birthday.
And it sounded accurate.
And then, so you used that to correct the prosecutor, right? Even though
That's
you didn't
correct.
remember.
Yes.
Oh, no? No.
With regard to that day, you said that all of this stuff, information, whatever you want to call it, was out there and you didn't want it to come
Well,
out, right?
unhappy birthday.
It wasn't out there. I didn't want it to be out there.
So what you're saying is, I
Oh.
guess, is that you were being a
I also realized that I didn't put Juan back on the screen at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Fail. Oh, y'all, what a cap off to the week. Oh, you know what? Happy early birthday, just in case I forget. All right, back. You know what? I just want Juan more. I just wanted Juan more.
that one.
Someone told me that one, and it sounded accurate.
And then, so you used that to correct the prosecutor, right? Even though you
That's
didn't
correct.
remember.
Yes.
With regard to that day, you said that all of this stuff,
The message
information,
reads right.
whatever you want to call it,
It reads right.
was out there and you didn't
Now
want
it
it to
does.
come out, right?
It wasn't out there. I didn't want it to be out there.
So what you're saying is, I guess, is that you were being a good Samaritan, right? In lying.
I wouldn't say that.
Thanks.
Well, you were saying that you didn't want this stuff to come out about Mr. Alexander and your relationship with him, right?
That's right.
So you were being a good person, right?
Sustained.
Well, do you think that that's an excuse that to not tell the truth, that you wanted to hide information?
No.
So you did hide information.
You
in
can't
addition to
handle
lying,
the truth.
Yes.
But
I'm glad we got there.
the detective isn't the only person that you lied to, right?
That's right.
You lied to a lot of
It's
people,
like the
right?
Lord of the Rings
Everyone.
one answer.
And there's different reasons that you had for lying to everyone, right?
Yes.
And in fact, one of the people that you lied to was Ryan Burns, right?
Yes.
Ryan Burns is this individual that you had a romantic interest in, right?
Yes.
In fact, in order to see whether or not the spark was there, you went all the way to Utah, right?
That was my goal.
Well, it was your goal, but you made it there, right?
Yes, but not for the reason you stated.
So you weren't there to go see him to see if there was any romantic interest?
Not on June 5th.
Not on June 5th, when you started your trip, part of your trip. So you're saying then that he was an afterthought?
Yeah, he was.
So he was just an alibi then?
Yeah, well, no, not an alibi.
Well, if he's an afterthought, then
The
if he's an
ultimate
afterthought, that means
shade
the primary
of
thought
it all.
that you had when you left Wairika back on June 2nd was to see Travis Alexander then. If Mr. Burns was an afterthought, as you said.
That's not correct.
Well, that's what you said though, right?
No,
Mr.
that's what
Burns
you
was-
said.
Mr. Burns was an afterthought, right?
You on drugs? You on
No,
drugs?
he was an afterthought after June 4th.
Okay, so before that, he was a priority thought.
He was the reason for the trip.
So he was the reason for the trip then, right?
Yes.
And the
Call it
reason
what
for
it
the
is.
trip to go see him was to see whether or not there was a romantic interest, right?
Welcome to the party,
That's why I planned the trip.
Right. That's my question. You wanted to see if there was going to be any sparks between you and Mr. Burns, right?
Yes.
And you had not seen him before that date in the sense that you hadn't been with him alone, correct?
That's correct.
You hadn't been out on a date with him before, right?
That's right.
You had only done the text messaging, right?
And phone calls and
Well,
emails.
is that a yes or a no, text messaging?
That would be yes.
And with regard to the telephone calls, you had done that, right?
Yes.
And you'd done that instant messaging thing, right?
I can't remember if that was before or after June 4th.
Well, but you did do that with him though, right?
Yes.
Do you remember sending him an instant message saying something to the effect, this is a test, before you went out to see him? Remember seeing that?
I remember seeing this as a test, but I don't recall the date.
And because of this interaction, you decided to go see him, right?
Yes.
And when you got there, one of the things that you said was that, well, I needed to keep up the facade, right?
That's right.
So you lied about getting lost, right?
Yes,
You didn't get lost that day, right?
I did get lost.
Oh, so you did get lost. So it was true then. This trip to see Mr. Alexander, it was because you got lost.
That's not why.
Huh? Where did you get, if you could tell us, because you were lost, where did you get lost, ma'am?
My understanding is it was somewhere in
Not your
Arizona.
understanding. I want you to tell me where you got lost, not what somebody else may have told you.
Objection, Your Honor, she should be allowed to answer the question.
Answer it.
And she doesn't answer
My
it
understanding
anyway.
is that I was
Ma'am,
lost somewhere in
saying
Arizona.
you're not being responsive. I'm asking you to tell me where you drove physically to the point where you got lost. Where did it start that you got, where does the beginning of your getting lost start?
Again, I'm going to object, Your Honor. She asked the question. She was in the middle of answering and he interrupted. She should be allowed to answer this
All right,
question.
overruled. Change the question. Restate the question.
Ma'am, when was the first time you realized you were lost?
When I couldn't power on my phone, it was dark.
Was this before or after you killed Mr. Alexander?
After.
And this is where you pulled off the side of the road, right?
Yes,
And then you continued to drive from that point to see Mr. Burns, right?
I just drove at
I
that
understand
point.
that you say you just drove, but from that point on, you did get a chance to speak to Mr. Burns, right?
Yes,
And in fact, one of the people that, the first person that you actually called once you got your phone charged was Matt McCartney, right?
yes,
And he's somebody that you are very close to, right?
somewhat, yes,
He's a very good friend, right?
yes.
He's an ally, right?
I don't know what you mean by ally.
Someone who will not betray you.
No, he's betrayed
Good
me.
night.
So, and you're talking about the fact that he saw somebody else, right? When he was with you, right? Is that what you're talking about, the betrayal?
That's only one of the times he's betrayed me.
So you've never told somebody, for example, like 48 hours that he was somebody that will not betray you.
I did say that on 48 hours.
So which is it? Is he going to betray you or is he not going to betray you? What is it?
Well, hopefully not.
Well, hopefully not means you're not answering the question. You just told us that he did betray you, yet now you're saying that in an interview with 48 hours, you said he would not betray you. So which is it?
I'm going to object to the relevance of any of this.
Overruled.
Well, when I made that statement to 48 hours, it was my belief that he would not.
It was your way of what?
My belief that he would not betray me.
With regard to any issues that were presented at the time that you made the telephone call to him after you killed Mr. Alexander, right?
With regard to that, when I said that in September.
Right, with regard to the call, if you told him anything, he wouldn't betray you, right?
That's what I said in September 2008.
And that's what you believed in September of 2008, right?
In September 2008, yes.
So you're out there and you try to call Mr. McCartney, and so you say that you're lost, but one of the other things that you say that you do is that you get out of the car, right?
Yes,
And you clean up, right?
yes.
That's because you knew what you had done, right?
I don't remember thinking that.
Well, I'm not asking you whether or not you remember thinking that. Isn't that the reason why you did it?
No, I don't think so.
Well, you knew that you had killed Mr. Alexander at that point, right?
It's hard to describe.
Yes or no? It's a yes or no sort of situation there.
It's not really. It's something.
It is.
It's not.
So in your mind, back then, when you're on the side of the road, you don't know if you killed him, right? That's what you're saying.
I can't really say it was in my mind. Like, it was kind of not there. It's kind of.
You weren't there, right? What you're saying is you weren't there, right? That's what you just said, right? That you weren't there. That's what you just said, right?
Weren't there in my head.
And so if you weren't there, though, you were there enough to pick up the phone and call Matthew McCartney, right? You were
Yes.
there enough for that, right?
Yes,
You were there enough to call Ryan Burns, right?
After a while, yes.
You were there enough for that, and you were there enough to make a call to Travis Alexander, weren't you?
Yes.
So you were there for those purposes, but you weren't there to tell me about what you were thinking, though, right? Is that what you're saying?
It depends on the time period.
How about the time when you got out and you started to wash your hands?
By then, I wasn't thinking that. I just knew something awful had happened because I had blood on my hands and my feet.
And so you knew that those were for Mr. Alexander, didn't you?
I think I did, yes.
You think you did, but again, you're telling us you're not sure, right?
I'm not telling you that.
Well, you had blood on your hands, right?
That's right.
And you had been driving, right?
Yes.
According to you, you had been at Mr. Alexander's house, right?
Yes.
There had been a fight, right?
Yes.
And you had done something, right?
Yes.
And this doing something had caused Mr. Alexander to
Not
bleed,
that I know
right?
of. Nope.
Yes.
And so if that's the case and you have blood on your
Maybe we have
hands,
to Shana
wouldn't
Huber-
you think
Huber
that the
about
blood
something
came from
she
Mr.
alleged.
Alexander?
I had cuts too, so
So you're thinking that the cuts could have come from you stabbing him?
I didn't have any recall of stabbing him at that
Well then,
time.
so you don't have any
Yeah,
idea where your
question
cuts come
earlier.
from then, at that point?
Feeling a little sheepish.
No, I cut myself on June 4th, early in the morning before we went to bed.
So you cut
He remembers
yourself
that.
on the glass, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Is this the situation where you're saying that you cut yourself on your right hand, right?
Yes.
You're left-handed, right?
I'm both.
Do you know who Mark, you're ambidextrous, is that what you're saying?
Yes, depending on the activity.
Well, do you remember indicating to 48 hours that you're a lefty?
Yes.
So what is it? Are you left or right?
Depends on the activity.
And what activity do you right left-handed?
I write with both, but I'm more proficient with my left.
And so with regard to this being out there, so you're out there and you've made these calls, you've got out, and you find your charger, right? Is that when you find the charger?
When I pulled over, yes.
And at some point, you're able to make a
Yes.
telephone call
While you were
to
driving.
Mr. Burns,
Now it
right?
matters.
Yes.
And then starts the line to him, right?
Yes.
And so at some point, then you drive all the way up to see him, and you get there around 11 o'clock in the morning, right?
I think so, yes.
Well, in between 11 and noon, would that be accurate?
I believe it was before noon.
And after 11, right?
I think so. I wasn't paying attention at the time, but it was late morning.
And you go up there, you have this meeting, and when you go up there to see him, you're telling us that you still don't know if Mr. Alexander is dead, right? You're telling us, right?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, so you do know that he's dead then?
There you go.
I have a, it's not like, it's like I wasn't accepting it or looking at it in my mind.
Acceptance and knowing are two different things. Wouldn't you agree, ma'am?
I was in a strong state of denial.
Ma'am, that's not my question to you. My question is accepting and knowing are two different things. Don't you agree?
Yes.
And so what you're saying is that you weren't accepting it. What that means is that you knew it. You just didn't want to deal with it. That's what you're saying, right?
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, you're the one that talked about acceptance, right? You just said that right now, correct?
That's correct.
And so by acceptance, it means you don't want to deal with it, right?
I don't know.
Well, you're the one that used that word. Why wouldn't you know?
Objection, ask and answer.
That's not true. That's a different question.
I don't know. My mind wasn't right during that whole period.
Well, you're throwing up your hands and you're saying that your mind wasn't right, but that's not the issue. The issue here is whether or not you knew he was dead, and it appears, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're saying you did know that he was dead.
I believe that I knew he was dead.
Okay, so you knew he was dead. And when you went to see Mr. Burns, you were the same person that you had been before. You were happy, smiling, right?
I was not, but I was trying to portray that.
Yeah. You were trying to portray that to lie to him, right? Put up a facade, right?
Yes, him and all my friends.
Pardon?
Him and all my friends.
I'm asking about Mr. Burns, all right? With regard to Mr. Burns, you were trying to put up a facade for him, right?
That's right.
You wanted to pretend that you were happy, right?
Is it a 3-bottle night or a
Yes.
4-bottle night?
And the reason that you wanted to pretend that you were happy is because you wanted to see if there was any spark with Mr. Burns, right?
That was the furthest thing from my mind at that point.
Okay, so if that's the furthest thing from your mind, then the closest thing in your mind is the fact that you killed Mr. Alexander, right?
I wasn't thinking of it in those terms.
Well, but isn't that sort of what you're telling us now?
It was something to that effect.
And so you go on through the day, and there's this meeting that takes place with Mr. Burns and one of his associates at a restaurant, right?
Yes.
And you follow along, and then after that, after the meeting, you go back to Mr. Burns's place, right?
Yes.
And now it's the afternoon, right?
Yes.
I just
And
want to
during
pull
the
him in.
afternoon, when you're with
Bust through
Mr.
the wall
Burns,
and go,
you begin to kiss him, right?
Yes.
And that's because you want to put up a facade, right?
No. She's heartless.
I guess that's part of the reason.
Well, no, you said when you were on direct that that was the reason you wanted to put up a facade, right?
Objection, Ms. Kirkhope. This is her testimony.
Restate the question.
And with regard to Mr. Burns and kissing him, was the reason that you kissed him because you wanted to put up a facade?
It's like
That was one of the
osmosis.
reasons.
She just
All right,
like
and the other reason was that you wanted to
her
see if there was
attorney's
a
look.
spark between the two of you, right?
mimicking.
That's not right.
She's like the human ditto.
But you did kiss him though, right?
Yes, I
If
did.
you're a nerd, you
Knowing
know what I
that
mean.
Mr. Alexander was dead, right?
I guess so.
Well, no, we don't want you to guess. We want you to know. And if you don't know, you can tell me that. Did you just tell me previously that you knew that Mr. Alexander was dead?
It's hard to explain.
Man, what is hard to explain about a person breathing or not breathing? What is so difficult? Why
thought
is that
she
a
could
difficult
do this.
concept for you?
She can't.
Because I'd never killed anyone before.
Okay, so because you've never killed anyone before, then you're having a problem deciding whether or not the person is dead, right?
I'm having a hard time describing what my state of mind was during that time.
If you hadn't killed anybody before and you didn't know if he was dead, then why did you just leave him to die?
Objection is irrelevant.
Overruled.
I don't think I did that.
Well, sure, you just told us that you'd never killed anybody before and you didn't know. So what you're telling us is that you left them to die,
He looks
didn't
like
you?
he's going to Mr. Wilson's garden party to watch that one flower open only during a certain
I
day
don't
during the
believe
year.
that.
Okay, so then you did know he was dead.
That's what we call a
Can't
fool.
have it both ways. Which one is it?
Objection, Your Honor. Argument that she's already explained her state of mind. She's not a psychologist.
Sustained as to the question. Rephrase.
That's true.
At the time you were kissing Mr. Burns' lips, did you know he was dead, yes or no? And by he, I mean Mr. Alexander.
Objection, ask and answer.
That was my pickup line. That's how I got Mrs. Brucecram.
I think I
Hi,
did.
AT. I never
Okay.
unalived anybody.
And so, but yet you continue kissing Mr. Burns anyway, right?
I don't know.
You mean you don't remember that you guys were continually making out, or not continually, but were making out before you went out for the evening?
I don't remember making out with him before we went out for the evening.
But you were kissing him, whatever that means, right?
We kissed.
Then you went to this training that was in the
And
evening,
that it's
correct?
self-promotion. But I'll put it up now.
It wasn't a training. It was a business briefing.
It was a briefing in the evening, right?
Yes.
And it was at a college, I believe, correct?
I don't remember.
And is that when you drove with Leslie Udy or not?
Christopher Lloyd in that movie was amazing.
I don't remember. I think I might have followed Ryan to the the place where the meeting
Made
was.
me want to eat
And when you went into this place,
all the
that's where
time.
you met up with Leslie Udy, right?
Yes,
And then after that, there was a meeting where you guys went to Chili's, right?
I'm kidding, by the way.
I'm not sure what restaurant it was.
All right, so you went to a restaurant, correct?
That's correct.
And when you went to this restaurant, before you went in, you were talking to Leslie Udy, right? In the car.
It was either before we went in or after, but at one point we were in the parking lot discussing things.
And you talked to her for about an hour, right?
I don't remember how long.
It was not 5 minutes, it was longer than 5 minutes,
It
right?
was longer than 5 minutes.
And during that time, that's when you told her that you looked forward to the future when your kids, those that you were going to have, and Mr. Alexander's kids could play together at PPL meetings, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That
As
was a
kid,
lie.
that's where I wanted to be sent, to PPL meetings with Gus, the magician.
Wasn't it?
Objection, Your Honor. What she was hoping, it's not a definitive fact.
Gus, the magician.
Can you please restate the question?
You lied to Leslie Udy when you told her that it was your hope that your kids and Mr. Alexander's kids played together at PPL events.
What did I tell you?
No, that was a hope of mine.
Miles an hour.
That was a hope of mine.
Oh, so you're saying that you thought he was alive at that time then, for you to have that hope?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, if you're
long
saying
list.
that and you know he's dead, why are you lying to her?
I had that hope.
Gus.
How can you say, as you sit here today, ma'am, that that was your hope when you knew he was dead? You can't have it both ways.
Objection, Your Honor. Mischaracterizes her testimony.
It was a hope of mine. And the fact that he had died didn't change my hope. It just made that hope unrealistic.
Oh, so the way you're saying now is the way you phrased it to her was that you hoped that your kids could play with his kids, not that that's what you wanted. Is that what you're saying there?
Objection. Mischaracterizes her testimony again.
That's not what was said, actually.
Well, if you don't know what was said, then why are you telling me that you said hope? That you hoped?
I didn't say I don't know what was said.
Never lower
I didn't
them.
say I don't know what was
Ever.
said.
Well, did you use the word
Never feel
hope?
bad about it either. Keep those standards here.
I might have used the word hope.
And if that's the case, if you use the word hope, then what you're telling us is that that was your hope, even though he was dead, right?
That was a hope of mine.
Don't you think that that's a lie, knowing what you knew at the time?
No, because I'm just stating a wish that I had.
Oh, so that was your wish even though you had killed him?
Yes, it was my wish.
And the other thing that you told her was that you and he were great friends, right?
Yes.
And you never mentioned anything about what happened at his house, did you?
That's right.
That was omitting important information, wasn't it?
Yes.
Ma'am, do you know somebody by the name of Mark Udy?
Yes.
He was there that night at that restaurant, wasn't he?
I believe he was.
And in fact, he sat next to you, didn't he?
So you're telling me there's a chance?
I think so, yes.
So it's your testimony that you did not, knowing that he was there that night, so is it your testimony that you did not have any cuts to your left hand?
I had cuts on my right hand for sure, and I don't remember about my left.
So it could be then that you did have cuts on your left hand, right? Correct?
It could be, but I didn't have Band-Aids on my
You need a
left
new
hand.
therapist.
I'm not asking you about Band-Aids. Maybe that's the problem here. I'm asking whether or not you had cuts on your left hand.
I don't recall. I remember my right hand was cut.
Probably
So,
not.
but it could be that you did, right?
Possibly.
And Mr. Udy was sitting right next to you, right?
Yes.
And because you were eating, he was in a position to see your hands, right?
Good night, Big Daddy. Don't go.
I would think so.
Pardon?
I would think so.
Right, because your hands were above the table, right?
Yes.
You know whether or not you had gauze on your cuts.
No, they were Band-Aids
So you're saying you had Band-Aids on your cuts, right?
on my right hand.
Okay, but you don't remember whether or not you had any Band-Aids on your left hand, right?
I did not have Band-Aids on my left hand.
You just may have had cuts. Is that what you're saying?
If I did, I don't remember, but I guess it's possible.
Well, you keep saying that it's possible. Why would you say now that it's possible that you would have cuts on your left hand? What makes you think that you might have cuts on your left hand?
Nothing makes me think that.
Well, then why are you saying it's possible? Aren't you really telling me that you didn't have any cuts on your left hand?
Not that I remember.
Okay, not that you remember means there's the possibility that it could be,
Prisoner number
right?
is high.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
So
about
there
it.
is a possibility that it could be, you don't remember. So if somebody else says that there may be, you wouldn't have any reason to quibble with that.
Objection, argumentative, proper question.
Kelly, one thing to say.
That's what she said.
I don't know.
And you don't know because you don't remember, is that it?
I don't know because I didn't have Band-Aids on my left. I had them on my right.
Now, one of the other things that happened after that is that at some point you then returned back to Mr. Burns' home, right?
Yes.
And you returned back to Mr. Burns' house and you guys go to sleep, right?
Yes.
You set your clock, or the clock is set so that you can get up, right?
Yes.
You need to get back to work, right?
Yes.
And you need to get back to work, Margaritaville?
No.
Wasting
You never worked at
away
Margaritaville at that
again in
time, right?
Margaritaville.
I don't know that there's any place called Margaritaville, so no.
So the answer is no, right?
That's right.
And so it's also true that if you broke a glass at work and you cut your hand, it wouldn't have been at a place called Margaritaville, right?
That's right.
Once you're there with Mr. Burns, you do wake up at some point, right?
Yes.
There's a movie that you guys were watching at some point also, correct?
Yes.
And when you wake up, you became passionate with him, right? You started to kiss him, didn't you?
Not passionate, yes, kissing.
You were what?
Not passionate, but yes, kissing.
And at some point, isn't it true that
No.
you quote unquote adjusted him?
I'm gonna bite my pillow. It's what I'm gonna
I helped him adjust himself.
Okay, but if you helped him adjust himself, there was some adjusting that was going on, right?
That's right.
And
Adjust.
that means that you moved his buttocks, is what we're talking about, right?
No.
Didn't you move his body then so that his body would be more available to yours?
No.
You didn't get on top of him and grind on top of him with your clothing on.
Insanity.
No.
That's not anything that you did, right?
I did not grind that guy.
It's like
You didn't-
you roll over
Perhaps
and she's like,
there's a Mormons, without getting too much into it, you and Mr. Alexander
Get
did
her
this
some
grinding,
chapstick.
didn't you?
Yes.
And that means something in your relationship, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Well, you just said that you and Mr. Alexander did this, right?
Yes, I did.
And that meant that your genitalia rubbed against each other, right?
Yes.
yes, Smithers.
So what you're saying is that your genitalia did not rub against Mr. Burns' genitalia, correct?
That's correct.
But you did get on top of him, right? Around the waist area.
Check, please.
No, I got off of him. I fell asleep on top of him.
And no, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking whether or not while you were kissing him, you got on top of his waist area. That's what I'm asking.
It's been 84 years.
I think I was laying next to him.
You keep saying think. I want you to tell me whether or not you got on top of Mr. Burns and placed your genitalia, where it would be, I know you were clothed, on top of his. That's what I'm asking.
Wait for it.
No, I got off from being on top of him.
So if you got off from being on top of him, at some point you had to be on top of him then, right?
Yes.
And so you were on top of his genitalia with your body. Part of your body was on top of his, right?
No, I was on
Yes.
top of his stomach.
Okay, and what you're saying is you were on top of his stomach with your legs spread or not?
Over 3 hours, and this is just my third.
I don't recall. We were in the love sack.
Pardon? I know you were in the love sack, but I'm asking whether or not you were straddling his stomach.
Baby love sack.
I think I might.
Yeah.
Okay? You say you think you might have been, which means really nothing because you're not admitting to anything. Isn't it true that you were straddling his midsection?
Objection, ask and answer.
Sustained.
Time.
Sustained.
Ma'am, and during that time that you were on top of him, there was some kissing that was going on, right?
No, we were sleeping.
But as soon as you woke up, you kissed him, right?
Not as soon as I woke up.
Some point thereafter, you kissed him, right?
Before I left, yes.
So you're saying that there was no romantic kissing that went on, is what you're telling me, right?
That's not what I'm saying.
So there was romantic kissing that went on.
Yes.
When did this romantic kissing take place?
I think it started first in the afternoon and then in the evening, or I guess it would be early morning on the 5th or the 6th.
And he also placed his hands between your legs, right? Some point.
Okay, I stopped smiling now.
Not that I recall.
But that means that you were here when he testified, right?
Yes.
So it could be that he did place his hands between your legs, right?
No, could be that he was full of crap. He didn't go there.
So you are saying that Mr. Burns is full of crap.
When he said he got near my vaginal area, absolutely.
Right? So, and you're the same person that's telling us that he's full of crap that has lied to him, right?
Yes.
That has lied to Leslie Udy, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That has lied to Detective Flores on 2 occasions, right?
Night court
Yes.
is.
And to continue this litany of lies, it isn't restricted to Utah. You also lied to people in Arizona, didn't you?
Yes, everyone.
Right. And yet you're telling us somebody else is full of crap, right?
When it comes to that, yes.
So the answer is yes.
I said yes.
And so after this happened, you went back to Wairika, correct? Drove back.
Yes.
And you drove back to Wairika and you didn't tell
I got me
anybody
a car.
anything
It's
that
as
had
big
happened.
as a whale.
You mean at Travis's house?
Yes, at Travis's house.
That's correct.
One of the things that ended up happening, though, is that you then received a call on June 10th of 2008 in the early morning hours, right?
Yes.
And you received that call from an individual by the name of Daniel Freeman, didn't you?
Yes.
He's the same individual that testified here today, not today, but at some point during these proceedings, right?
Yes.
And he was telling you about Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
And you lied to him, right?
I don't know, I guess.
Well, no, we don't want you to guess, man. You did lie to him, didn't you?
I'm trying to recall our conversation.
Well, did you tell him I'm the person who killed him? You didn't do that, did you?
No, I didn't.
You pretended you didn't know anything about it, right?
I don't remember. He just told me.
I know what he just told you. I want to know whether or not you told him that you knew that something had happened to Mr. Alexander on June 4th of 2008. Did you tell him that?
No.
You omitted that, right?
Yes.
Head over to
Even though he was calling you to talk to you about Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
The conversation allowed for that sort of response from you, right?
Yes.
But you didn't do it. Instead, you kept it to yourself, right?
Yes.
He was upset when he called you, right?
Objection, cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Heard his voice, right?
Yes.
And you could tell from his voice whether or not he was upset. You've been around him before, hadn't you?
Yes.
You'd been around him many times going to his house for Sunday dinner, right?
Yes.
And you've also been around him when he'd been around with his family, right?
Yes.
With his sister Desiree, right?
Yes.
Had gone up to Sedona with you, right?
Yes.
Had gone up to the Grand Canyon with you, right?
Yes.
Had gone up to the Havasupai Falls, right?
Yes.
You had significant contact with him, right?
Yes.
And in fact, at some point, you even thought that he liked you, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you wrote that in your journal, right?
Yes.
So you could tell from his tone of voice that he was upset.
I've never heard him upset in my life, actually.
Okay, so that tone of voice that he displayed to you was foreign to you.
It was gentle, the way he was talking.
All right, so it was a gentle tone of voice. And in this gentle
I said,
tone of voice, you
go to
never
Goodwill
told
Google,
him
because they're
that
just
you
as
were
good as the
responsible
new
for the killing
accounts.
of Mr. Alexander, were you?
I had to say a
No, I
bad
did not.
joke twice.
You could have though, right?
Yes,
He was a pretty close friend, right?
yes,
And instead, what you
Sure was.
chose to do is you chose to perpetuate the lie, right?
yes,
You then started to call a religious person, didn't you?
yes,
You called somebody by the name of Bishop Layton, right?
yes,
And you called him and you know, asked him whether or not Mr. Alexander was dead, right?
Rude.
I didn't think I asked him that.
Well, isn't that the topic of the conversation, Mr. Alexander's death?
Yes,
And during this time, you're calling as the grieving ex-girlfriend, right? Somebody who cares.
Yes. I
Um,
wouldn't say that.
I was calling as a friend.
Okay, if you're calling as a friend, why are you calling if you already know what happened to Mr. Alexander other than to lie about it?
There were many things I didn't know.
Oh, so you just wanted to get information about the death so you could use it later to lie about it? Is that what it is?
Objection, argument.
I just called because I wanted to know what he knew.
And the reason you wanted to know what he knew was so that you could see whether or not anybody was on to you, right?
Yes, partially.
And it wasn't like you cared about Mr. Alexander. It was you just wanted to see what it was that you needed to do to make sure that you weren't charged with a crime, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Ma'am, you wanted to see what he knew is what you told us, right?
Yes,
What purpose would there be for that information, knowing what he knows about it, other than to benefit you?
the fact that there was a big memory block was bothering me.
I'm not asking you if a memory block was bothering you.
You asked
Am
the
I?
reason, what other
Am I
reason?
asking you if a memory block was bothering you?
Objection, Your Honor, ask and answer. She answered the question he asked.
Am I asking you if a memory block was bothering you?
No,
I was asking you about the information that you were trying to get and what you were going to do with it, right?
no, that's not what you were asking me.
Man, isn't it true that I asked you the purpose for calling Bishop Layton, right?
No,
I asked you that. Why did you call Bishop Layton? Didn't I ask you that?
prior, yes,
Well, this is part of the same conversation, isn't it?
yes,
And you do agree that you called Bishop Layton, right?
yes,
In the middle of the night, right?
yes.
3 a.m., I think, right?
Yeah, it was late.
And you called Bishop Layton and you spoke to him because you wanted to get information about what he knew about the investigation, right?
That was part of it.
Yes, that part. Let's talk about that part. The part that you wanted to know about the investigation, that was going to help you should something come of this, right?
Objection again.
That wasn't my thought, really.
That wasn't your thought, then why do you even want to know about it?
Be quiet.
I couldn't remember much or anything from that day.
God.
Well, you remembered that you had been there, didn't you?
Yes,
You remembered that there had been this confrontation, right?
I do remember that.
Yes, and you remember that you didn't call 911, right?
Yes,
So why is it that you even need to know about the investigation since you have first-hand knowledge? Why are you asking for somebody who has second-hand knowledge?
Objection, Your Honor, mischaracterized. She didn't have first-hand knowledge. She had no memory.
You were there. You're the person who killed him, right? You've admitted that in court, right?
yes,
That means you were there, right?
yes,
If you were there, and you
9.
knew you were there, you did know you were there, though, didn't you?
yes.
If you knew that you were there and that he was dead, then why are you calling for information? Is it to rub it in?
Objection, argumentative.
Why are you calling for?
Your Honor.
Pardon? May continue.
Now's a good time. Now's a good time. I know that it's Friday night, and I know that The world wants to continue. But what I want to continue is to have mods. And it was a long day today, and tomorrow was a surprise. So I want them to go to bed. Whether they do or not, it's a different story. However, well said. Well said. All right. So thank you all so much. I really, really, really appreciate you being here on a Friday night. Blows me away every week that you guys are willing to hang out with me, and because I'm hoping that you're not hanging out with Jodi. I'm hoping that she sets the bar low and I surpass it. But yeah. So thank you so much, so much. I've got a couple packages in the mail, so I got to go pick those up tomorrow. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., Brandi is hopping on with a verdict watch / introducing you all to Shabusiness. God, it's like she wanted to have a trial that was going to be broadcast with a name like Shabusiness. Anyways, just a lot of possibilities there. I can't wait to make some graphics. It's going to be fun. But I know Brandi's been prepping for this, and yeah. So tune in if you can. If not, the replay crew's cool too. Also, thank you, replay crew. And thanks to those of you who are usually on the replay crew who are here tonight. So I'm going to...
Look, let me tell you a little story about a man named
and go ahead and end this. So thank you all so much. Court is adjourned for one. Let me just hit my microphone too, as along with everything else. Remember to take care of yourself. Take care of your friends and family. Boy, oh boy, be kind. And don't forget to smile. Smile like your heart is breaking. Smile. We're going to go to the end video. Bye, everybody.